Hello, sir. How are you today? Hi, my name is James Bond. Actually, I'm like a spy. I'm really good at it too, being a spy. I think I'll have a vodka martini.
What are you doing?
Hi, my
You're
name's...
doing this now. Do you have to do this right now? We're watching TV. Right now? Fine.
Hi, my name's Jed, and I've been playing the Rune Factory series. Why? Do I need to tell you why? No, seriously, do I need to tell you why? I get this overwhelming feeling like I need to justify every video I make. Do you need a reason why I played Rune Factory? I don't know. Now, straight off the bat here, I really want to acknowledge that it is hot on a winter's day in Melbourne today, which is fucking annoying. Now, off the bat, I want to acknowledge that I didn't play Rune Factory 1 or 2 or like the Wii games, right? I don't really have a means to play those games in an official setting, and I don't really want to play them illegally either. That's just me. It's a me thing. If you want to get angry at me for that, I'll cop it. That's fine. If Neverland were to release Rune Factory 1 and 2 special, as well as the Wii games, Tides of Destiny and Frontier, I promise I'll make another video adding those games to the ranking. For now, in this video, I'm playing 3, 4, and 5 and Guardians of Azuma, and I'll be doing the ranking of them all at the butt end of the video, alright? So stick around to see my true feelings. If you haven't played Rune Factory, they are essentially JRPGs with the guise of farming and life simulation, right? I was immediately kind of attracted to this series because at first glance, I just assumed they were normal JRPGs, just your run-of-the-mill whatever, right? But they had a very dedicated fan base, and that kind of intrigued me. What about these games was so special that people were just rambling about them in the way that I saw? And it's because of this farming life simulation aspect. Like, it's quite unique for the genre, I feel like. And you might say, well, that's every game right now. Every game is a farming life simulator. 3 in particular came out in 2009 for the DS, right? So it was well before the craze that Stardew Valley cooked up among game developers, right? I'm not going to be making a lot of Stardew Valley references. I know I've got that, but it's not why I'm here. It's a genre that shares a lot of the same tropes with each other, and I'm not really that interested in exploring it, especially given I'm not that experienced with Stardew Valley, despite it being one of my favorite games. Anyway, as well, I just want to say up front, I don't find it particularly pertinent to talk about the story in these games particularly. These games are they're very gameplay first, with story as kind of a secondary, which isn't to say that the stories are lacking depth or thought, right? Because they're pretty well-made stories. I just don't find it within reason to spoil them. There's not really a lot I have to say about them that will impact you that heavily. So on that note, given these games are so gameplay forward, this is probably going to be one of my most pedantic videos, which I haven't really done a whole lot of in these videos quite yet. After this, we'll see how pedantic I can really be. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. Rune Factory 3. Rune Factory 3 opens with a little sheep character that's stuck in the rain and sick and I guess theoretically dying. He's then taken inside by a character named Shara, who is the local flower shop lady. This type of creature is known as a woolly, and it's like the staple creature of the series, right? It's the one they put on the box. You know, Final Fantasy has Moogles, Rune Factory has woolies. The only difference between those two is you don't see the protagonist chop a Moogle in half at any point in Final Fantasy, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. Not only is this a woolly, but it's you, Micah. Well, for our purposes, Chiss.
So your name is Micah, but you can change it. It will tell you to call it Micah.
I don't want to be Micah.
Dick man. Fuck monster.
Fromage. No, I don't want to be Fromage.
What about Chiss?
Chiss.
Yes. Yeah. No, just one S.
My name's Chiss.
Yeah.
Chiss okay? Yeah, I'm Chiss.
No, mate, it's Chiss.
Chiss. Chiss.
This is your chist.
This is...
And magnifying glasses, because you're gonna get more than one.
Next is your fridge. This is where you only put your chiss food, such as chedgies, troot, chish.
Delicious chish.
Chish.
So yummy.
Chiss.
Chiss the name.
That's not a real
I went
name.
through some stuff, and then other stuff happened. And long story short, my name's Chiss.
Chiss wakes up with no memory. This is a consistent thing throughout these games. Every character at the very start loses all their memory. I know this is a trope that people love to make fun of in anime particularly, that characters like to have amnesia and forget everything. I don't really care. It doesn't upset me. I'm not going to laugh about it every time. For these games, it's kind of a very easy way to put the player in the world where having somebody go, like, what is this? What the fuck are you talking about? Especially with all the stuff with runes and, like, the gods and stuff, you need to have that character who's going, what the fuck's going on? As well as the fact that it gives them credence to tell a story of a character, like, remembering their purpose. And I like that, you know? I'm not against it at all. But Shara comes home to find that the Wooly is gone, and in its place is you, Chiss. And I guess out of anger that her cute friend is now gone, she decides to shove you into a dying tree and force you to farm for the rest of your life. I'm of course joking, the tree and the farming thing is of your own free will. The tree you inhabit is called the Charance tree, and the town you're in is called... It's presumably Charance, but it's never officially stated. I tried to look up what this town is called. I don't think it has a name. I think it's assumed it's called Charance because this is the Charance tree, but with this whole sequence of showing you the tree and the farming, it kind of leads in straight away to how immediately odd this gameplay feels.
There! Ouch!
What the hell?
Goodness.
That was awkward as fuck. The UI and the movement is already like kind of just in your face, right? It's just these big kind of blocky things, and the way you move is like you're always sprinting at 100%. Everyone you walk past shouts something at you. The game constantly yells skill up at you as you move around, and you don't really know what fucking skill is going up.
All right!
Why do my skills keep going up? What? I'm not doing anything. So it's just kind of just overstimulation central, right? And on top of that, I had my friend Liam constantly rambling in my ear that this is a fuck game.
So you can fuck in this game and have a child.
Can you?
Yeah. I don't think we've had the pleasure of fucking.
How may I help?
I want to fuck.
No, what, hold on.
You can use my oven, and by oven I mean.
Liam, my goodness. It's Miss Root Pin.
Bruce, that's another word for fuck.
No, it isn't. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing, by the way.
You're trying to fuck, I believe.
I don't think I'm trying to fuck you. 90% women. I see what you're saying, Liam. This is a horny game.
It's a fuck game.
It's not a fuck game. Once you adjust to the really weird personality this game has, it actually becomes really quite charming. I really love the characters here, and I love that a lot of them are just like the pinnacle of weird. Like this one dude who like constantly talks in opposites.
No!
I don't mean it.
I'll be off then.
This game is fucking stupid.
I see what you mean.
This
Yeah.
is fucking stupid. You have this painter lady who shouts rainbow really loud. There's a good cast of characters here, and you kind of immediately feel part of it. You can tell that they went to a great effort to make the town feel alive, because you see all the people constantly kind of moving around. Like they have their own schedules day to day. They go here, they go there. Sometimes there's just like these strangers that move around the town. Like they're not important people. They're just kind of theoretical tourists. And every time you talk to one of the townsfolk, they always have something different to say. I mean, as in every day. Like if you talk to someone one day and the next day, there's always something different they have to say. And I find that really strange. I feel like it would have taken them a long time to have the characters say such unique lines almost every day. Kind of immediately feel part of this town, and you really want to explore who's here and what the fuck is going on.
By the way, I'm Chiss.
Now, one of the main things you do in this game is the farming, right? And so here's the first kind of dipping into the gameplay, and my first dipping into how pedantic I can really be. So like, just please be kind. All right. here we go. The controls of this game take some getting used to. Every item in the game can be held, but only some can be equipped. So like you can have a watering can equipped while holding turnips. When you're holding something, you can press square or triangle to put it in your pocket. But if you have something equipped, there's no putting it away unless you manually go into a menu and select an empty slot to fill your hands. I mentioned this up front because it plays a part in everything. You'll accidentally hold something instead of equipping it. You'll have something in your hands without realizing you have it in your hands, and you'll throw it across the map. You'll think you're holding something, but then you'll accidentally attack your crops in response because the same button to put the weapon away is the same button to attack. So it's like it's like this all the time. You have to be constantly vigilant that something is either equipped or in your hands. When picking up harvestable crops, you get in the loop of pressing X square, X square, X square over and over and over, because if you try to pick them all up at once, it doesn't work, because one flower or crop will have a different level value than another flower or crop. So you're not allowed to have them in the same stack. So if you try to pick them all up at once, you often find you have just one awkwardly fall to the floor as you pick up another one, and then you'll become anxious that if you leave that on the floor, the game will like blink it out of existence. And it doesn't really happen really, but with some things it does happen. You see the blinking start, and so like, what is it okay to leave things on the ground, or is it not? Like do you get to see how my brain works here just a little bit? Like, do you see what I'm saying? Because farming is actually the best part of the game. When you're showing your farm, you'll notice each section is made up of 3x3 squares, right? So each section can hold 9 crops. Perfect, because the stacks only go to 9. It's absolutely divine. If you go to the shop to buy turnips or flowers or whatever, they come in stacks of 9. So if you want to buy 3 sections worth, you know, you have to buy 27 turnips. So now, not only am I having the time of my life farming, I'm getting better at my 9 times table. Thank you so much, Rune Factory. Please don't turn out to be a fuck game. You plant crops first by knocking all the fucking garbage out of the way, right? If you even can, you absolute chud. Then you use your hoe to loose the soil, or whatever it's called, to till the soil, right? Then you equip your seeds and you plant them. And guess what, bitch? If you hold down circle, you'll charge it up and you'll fill all 9 squares around you. It is absolutely perfect. This is the best fucking game I've ever played in my life. Then you whip out your watering can, and guess what, bitch? You water that motherfucker. For now, you can only go 1 square at a time, but if you upgrade your watering can, you hold that down and you can water all 9 spaces at once. God. They made the best game I've ever played here, you know? Now, in this kind of section, before you've upgraded your hoe and your watering can, you do kind of get into a bit of a rhythm here, because if you press the buttons just right, you'll kind of naturally bounce along to the next square, right? So you just keep pressing square to like boonk, 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 boonk across your farm, tilling each one as you go. And same with the watering can. Now immediately though, as you're having an absolute fucking blast learning your 9 times table and planting your seed, you'll notice that everything you do in the game costs stamina or rune points, right? Runes are essentially this game's version of like mana, I guess. The runes come from the earth. So it's kind of the game's way of planting how you're feeling with how well the world is doing. Because if the world runs out of runes, I guess everyone becomes tired. Just a quick lore dump for you, I guess. So everything you do in this game has a skill value associated with it. Farming, the fishing, the fighting, the sleeping, the walking, it all has a skill value, right? Like the more you upgrade a skill, the less stamina that skill consumes, right? So as you do more farming, you become capable of doing more at the farm, right? Because it'll use less and less stamina, right? So if I talk about anything in this game, you can assume there's a skill value to go with it, right? The mining, the chopping down trees, the cooking, the foraging, the crafting, all of it. The only thing that doesn't, I think, is the like talking to people. There isn't like a talking skill. I'm not really sure that like when you sleep and walk, you're not using up stamina. So it's a little unclear what getting better at those skills prevents. For sleeping, I can assume if you stay up too late, you catch a cold. And I assume if your sleeping skill is upgraded, you're less likely to catch a cold. But the walking, I don't know what that's upgrading. I couldn't tell you. Maybe you walk like a small percentage faster. I don't know, maybe. Interestingly, when it comes to farming, I don't actually think you need to water your crops every day, though it does help. Technically, you only really need to water them if they've gone yellow, right? Because if it's gone yellow, you go to sleep and wake up, it'll turn into withered grass, which is not ideal. Otherwise, the farming is kind of the same loop every single day. You'll wake up, you'll run down, you'll water everything, harvest all your plants, and then in place of the plants that have been harvested, you'll need to then re-till the soil. You'll replant your seeds if you have them. Whenever you harvest something, there's a small percentage that it'll reproduce a seed, but it's not something you should rely on. You're better off making sure you have seeds beforehand, or running down to the flower shop, waiting for it to open, immediately running in and buying all the seeds you need, and then running back and planting them and watering them again, right? Sometimes when you harvest something as well, there'll be this kind of blue shining orb that appears. I thought that upgraded your farming skill specifically, but it actually upgrades a random skill, which is a pretty interesting system, I think, because it means that even if you're not engaging in one of the systems, if later on you choose to, you shouldn't be that far behind, because by getting these blue orbs, everything kind of eventually catches up with itself to a certain extent, right? If you harvest something, you might as well get these kind of weird freaks that appear. It's a little unclear to me what they are or what they represent. They seem to give you back your stamina, but it's just a strange thing. I really like them. They're just these stupid freaks that appear. They're static images. They don't have any animation. No one acknowledges them. Whatever, I guess. Now, what you do with the crops that you harvest is typically you'll sell them, right? But you can also use them for cooking, and you can just like gift them to people around the village, but we'll get into those two latter things a bit later. With the vegetables you sell, the flowers you sell, obviously the longer it takes for something to grow, the more valuable it'll be, and certain crops and flowers have different level values. I guess something to do with the soil, how often you've retilled it, etc., right? So you could have a level 3 turnip or a level 2 turnip, and they go for slightly different prices. You want to have a good balance between the quick crops like turnips and toy herbs, so that then you have consistent income, and you want to have some of the heavy hitters that take like 9 days to grow, so that then you can have that big payday. It's a pretty fun balance to keep, and it's really satisfying when you get those days where you just clear your entire farm, right? Because everything is ready to be harvested. There's 4 seasons in the game: spring, summer, autumn, and winter, in that order. Each season has a different set of flowers and crops that are unique to that season, right? So you can only really grow the turnips in spring. Then summer becomes tomatoes and cucumbers and etc., right? Autumn has yams, that kind of stuff. And the flowers are different too. Whenever the game changes seasons, it completely wipes out your crops. Anything you had planted immediately turns to withered grass. This is to be expected and prepared for. Hopefully you've mathed out planting something to the exact time when the season ends, so that then you haven't spent 8 days trying to grow something that then turns to grass anyway. It can be annoying, but that's the nature of the game, isn't it? Now, I feel like based off this description, it doesn't sound like the most interesting farming game you could ever play. And it isn't. You know, admittedly, it's a pretty base level farming game. There's nothing too intricate or special here. The one comparison to Stardew Valley is the fact that you get like the sprinklers and the machines and the mayonnaise, and like there's so much more you can do with the farming in that game. This is not really like that. You kind of just harvest the crops and either cook them or sell them. Like, that's kind of it. You can also just straight up eat them too. With the turnips and the flowers, if you just eat it, there's a very small health boost or a stamina boost, but that's kind of mainly it. So there isn't a lot here, and it didn't need to have a lot, right? This was a DS game from 2009. It just kind of needed to be fun enough to entertain your children while you're on a road trip, right? And I feel like it hits that goal pretty perfectly. You get very quickly caught in the like 1 more day loop of a typical farming simulator, you know, because you'll know that the next day this crop will grow and the next day this crop will grow. So you get into that loop of like, I'll just go to sleep and wake up and 1 more day, 1 more day, 1 more day, 1 more day. And I like it. It's a lot of fun. I haven't talked about the time system in this game. I think each minute in game is roughly 1 second, give or take. So days go by pretty quickly.
Chiss.
I'm Chiss. I'm half monster, half amnesia. My name's Chiss.
Chiss, I live on Chiss Farm.
And I'm here to Bark.
Outside of farming, there's other little activities you'll interact with, mainly fishing. Fishing minigame here is very simple. With your fishing rod equipped, you'll go over to the water, you'll see these kind of little fish silhouettes, and you'll try to kind of awkwardly angle your body, hopefully in front of where a fish is, and then you'll cast your lure, hopefully in front of a fish, and if the fish sees it, it'll start kind of bobbing at the lure until eventually catching it, in which case you have to immediately press circle as fast as you can. The more high level the fish is, the tighter that window is between it catching it and leaving before you can press circle, which is a window you feel quite tightly when you first start fishing, right? The bigger fish feel very difficult to catch because they'll snatch it and then they'll leave, right? So as your fishing skill gets better, you'll feel yourself get better at getting those higher value fish. The one kind of thing here that's a bit troublesome with the fishing minigame is that there's no coding in place for if more than one fish spots your lure, right? They'll all just kind of start bobbing at it at this, like, with no rhyme or reason between them. This is a bit troublesome because it creates this kind of overstimulation of noise, and you really have to concentrate for the second it catches, because the bobbing sound and the catching sound are somewhat similar, especially if they're all overlapping at once. It's not the biggest deal in the world, but you feel it in this game quite a bit. If multiple fish are bobbing at it, you really have to lock in to make sure you don't miss the window. Fish are the same as like the crops in terms of what you do with them. Like, you can eat them, you can cook them, you can gift them to villagers, or you can just sell them, right? Which is typically what I did. I would just, at the end of any day, if I didn't want to do any more dungeon crawling, I would just stand there and fish and then run back and sell all my fish. Like, that was really all I ever did. Fish are a really good way to make quick money, and the times where you pull out something massive, you'll go, damn, I'm the best fisherman that's ever lived. And it's a good feeling. My name's Chess. Haven't you heard?
I'm the hottest thing in cool.
I'm the damn hottest guy around. Now, one of the other main things you do in this game, and probably my favorite, is the bonding mechanic. I talked about the townspeople and how you can give them gifts. Every person in the town has like a relationship meter that has a maximum of 10. This goes up whenever you talk to them, or give them a gift, or give them a gift on their birthday, or do a little like request for them, and I'll get into the requests later. This game has a pretty high emphasis on the dating mechanic, right? So you can tell which people you can date versus which ones are just friends by looking at the relationship thing. They'll either have a love heart or like a smiley face, so there's only certain people you can actually date. Because in this game you don't pick your gender at the start, you're locked into only dating women. I'm not going to go through everyone in town, but I'll mention a few here because there's a few standouts. You have Karina, the sleepy shopkeeper girl who seems apathetic, but it's actually just kind of lazy. She does have interests, and the more you delve into her story, you kind of get to know her a bit more and see that she isn't as sleepy as presented, but I really like her a lot. She is also the person that goes and collects stuff from the request bins at roughly 5 p.m. I say roughly because she can get interrupted on the way to the shipping bin. I feel like there might have even been once that she forgot, but maybe not. She's never exactly on time, and that's canon with her character being kind of sleepy. I really like that a lot. You have Daria, the art lady who shouts rainbow so loud it clips the audio, which I actually think is iconic.
Rainbow!
It was annoying at the start, but then when I started talking to her and she stopped saying rainbow that loud, I really started to miss it, to be honest. You have Raven, the apathetic, distant, mysterious girl who works at the smithy. She's kind of a fan favorite, I guess. She's introduced right at the start of the game. I didn't really get to know Raven that closely, so if she's one of your favorites, I'm sorry, I didn't get to know her. The last person I'll mention here is Sophia. She is a weird freak who only talks in opposites and enjoys receiving garbage. I love Sophia with all my heart. She is the love of my life. She's my favorite in this game by far, if that tells you anything about who I am. How the bonding works is essentially people like it when you talk to them. If you talk to somebody once a day, it kind of very incrementally increases your relationship. But you can also give them gifts. They only like specific things, right? Each person has a very specific set of things that they like. Like Karina, for example, really likes jewels. You only really find this out if you give someone something, anything, and they'll say like, oh, thanks for that. what I really like is this, and so you kind of clue into the things they like. And within that, even though Karina likes jewels, she doesn't like diamonds, so it's kind of, there's a little bit of nuance there, but it's simple enough that it's easy to follow. You go into a dungeon, you collect a certain thing, you know that if you run back and give it to one person specifically, they're gonna like it. In Sophia's case, if you give her anything, she'll say, "Thanks so much, I only like useful things," which for her means she likes useless things. So you get into the habit of cooking up a disastrous meal and handing it to her, and her going, "Thank you so much, this is my favorite thing that's ever been given to me." Every person in town also has a birthday, so the giving gifts becomes a bit more impactful if you give someone something they like on their birthday. I can't tell you the exact boost this is, but they like it more, theoretically, right? And when it is someone's birthday, every single person will remind you that it's that person's birthday, so it's near impossible to miss. I really don't know what it is about this kind of system that just draws me in like a dog to another dog's asshole. I can't get enough. I love these kind of bonding systems where somebody says that they like jewels, so you just every day give them a new jewel. It's just such a childish and fun way at looking at relationships and how you build relationships with people, and I'm absolutely drawn to it because I like seeing the closer you get with someone, the way they talk to you changes that little bit. Like, I think it's cute, a very innocent and like silly way of looking at this. I think it's great. Oh, Chiss, you gave me 108 puke-inducing meals. I love you with all my heart. I don't know. It's cute. It's really stupid. I like it. I can't afford a swimsuit or a green outfit. It's two options when you go to any clothing store. A swimsuit or green outfit. On top of building relationships through the normal means, like I described, a lot of the townspeople also make requests, which there are two types of requests. They're the ones in your personal mailbox, and there's like the town bulletin ones that theoretically anyone could do. But does anyone do them? No, you have to fucking do them. Now you might think kind of right away that this is just going to be a simple system of like, oh, well, Old Man Wells wants 7 carrots. So you do it and you give him 7 carrots. Good work. No, they put a lot of thought into this. Like, a lot of the requests sometimes do come down to something like that, but they put a lot of writing in and story to go along with these requests, and you see how each request kind of follows on from the next one. Someone might be trying to bake a cake for someone, so they might say, oh, I need this for this now, but the next request they realize that person doesn't like that type of cake, so they have to change, that kind of stuff. Like, each request is kind of a step in a little story for each character, and it's pretty fun. I like it. It's what I described about Karina. You see at the start she's sleepy and lazy, and her mom fucking hates her damn fucking guts. My damn bitch daughter, do some fucking work, would you? But no, she wants to improve the store. She's just kind of sleepy, and I think this stuff's good. It feels really cute to come to the end of these stories and see how things play out. You understand why Sophia, for example, really only talks in opposites. The reason is utter nonsense, but it's still fun to explore.
Oh.
And I think it's a fun lore thing that, like, the mailbox in the town bulletin, because it means that the requests you take in your mailbox are more personalized, more like, I only need Chiss to do this. On top of this, like, you can only ever do one request a day, which for some people I can imagine to be frustrating because you kind of just want to knock them all out as fast as you can, but I like that you can only do them one at a time. I'm somebody who gets overwhelmed with games really quickly if there's too much to do. So the fact that you can only really pick one each day and do that one and that's it, I find that really handy because it means I can just lock in on that. Once it's done, I can do whatever I want the rest of the day. I can go fishing or I can go in the dungeon, which naturally brings us along to the last main thing you did in this game. I am a master at segues.
Let's do this! Next time, you're mine.
The last thing you do in this game is the dungeon crawling. That's the main thing you're going to be doing. It's the main way you progress through the story in this game, right? Now, this game has 4 main dungeons. Each dungeon is associated with a specific season: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. in that order. The reason each dungeon is themed in this way is because you can grow crops in the dungeons themselves, which is really handy for if you need to grow something that's like outside of season. Like, for example, if Karina asks for yams, but yams can only be grown in autumn, it's currently summer, you then go over to the autumn dungeon and you plant some yams in the autumn dungeon crop, right? Because that'll grow as if it's autumn. Really handy stuff. It means that nothing in the game is really ever locked off because you're not at the right time or something, or you've progressed past it. Like, no, it's everything is within grasp. Now, obviously, you engage in combat as well. Now, there's a series of weapons in this game. There's the short swords, there's like the 2 daggers. I liked using the long sword because I like doing a big swing that does tons of damage. It's like my favorite thing in any video game. With the sword or a weapon of choice equipped, what the fuck? With your weapon of choice equipped, you will press circle to do a big swing. As your skills increase in each weapon, you get certain little abilities you can do with them, like hold down circle to do a big swing damage, or like at the end of the combo you might start doing like a swirl. Like, you kind of get these little things as the weapon skills increase. You also get weapon abilities that you can map to either the square or the triangle button, as well as spells, which you'll map to either the square or the triangle button, such as like fireball or water ball. The element itself has its own skills. The more you use these things, the better you get at it. Like, fighting itself costs you stamina. So you'll notice at the very start, you'll go into a dungeon, you'll swing your sword 3 times, and then you'll fucking pass out, which I feel like is very apt to what dungeon crawling would be like in real life. Like, I just imagine going in and swinging my sword the first time and going, oh, fuck this, I'm not doing this shit. In this game, you can stick to whatever weapon you want. There's no real reason to swap different weapons unless you really want to. I liked using the longsword. I stuck to the longsword the entire game. You're only ever going to see me fight with the longsword in the clips here. I like that this game allows you to stay to one weapon, right? The enemies you fight here are at a pretty good variety, right? There's your basic like wolves. There's like these kind of like elemental sprites. You have ghosts. There's also like the normal creatures like chickens and sheep that you can choose to fight if you so choose. Certain enemies will give you certain status effects, such as like poison, paralysis, which means you can't run anymore. You can fall asleep. You can catch a cold, which is great. And each of these statuses have a specific like potion that you can ingest to get rid of that ailment. So you'll often go into dungeons with these potions in preparation for getting hit with the ailment, right? You get them from the potion chemistry shop, run by... It doesn't matter. If you don't have a potion for a status ailment, I don't actually think it goes away, specifically the paralysis. Maybe poison does, but if you're paralyzed, you just kind of have to awkwardly walk back to the doctor and have them fix it for you, which is really funny whenever that happens. Within the dungeons as well, you can always just warp home. One of the spells you have is just a warp. So like if you're in the middle of a fight and you realize you're not gonna win, you just press the warp button and instantly you're back home. Like I really find that quite handy and helpful. It's something consistent throughout the entire series. Like, the dungeons are not meant to be hard. If you die in a dungeon, it's really your own doing. Like, you can just leave whenever you want. What's stopping you from leaving the second things go south? Nothing. Oh, fuck's sakes. Okay, get up. Fuck! No, you're dead. Enough. Each enemy you fight will drop some kind of material. Usually, anyway, like there's like these blades, there's ghost hoods, which are pretty awkward. Anything the enemies drop is typically something you can use to upgrade equipment later on, if you so choose. They'll upgrade in both like physical attack or physical defense, or like certain status ailments, like you can have it increase fire damage or decrease fire damage that you take. Just that kind of stuff. You use this with the forge, which you have to like buy later. I didn't use the forge a lot. I didn't use the crafting bench a lot. We'll come back to this later. Once you've completed a dungeon, the smithy will start offering better swords and armor and equipment in general, right? So it means it's more satisfying completing dungeons in this game, I would say, because when you've completed a dungeon, now I can go and get a better sword, and like you'll go and fight the new dungeon with your old sword and then compare it to the new sword, and you see a big difference. I like that this game has an option for buying equipment rather than crafting it, because the crafting system is a little bit obtuse, but again, we'll get into that later. Admittedly, I played this game on easy. There's 3 difficulties or more. There's easy, normal, and then like hard. I started on normal and I didn't want to keep playing it on normal. I'm just looking for like an easy breezy farming fighting game, and having it on an easy offers exactly that experience, right? I didn't really have any trouble fighting per se, but there was still enough of a challenge that sometimes I would die or need to go back. I think the easy difficulty here is like perfectly balanced, right? One of the things you can do with the villagers around town is you can ask them to follow you, and this creates like a party system, right? I didn't really like the party system, right? I didn't engage with it at all, because in this one in particular, it's kind of awkward trying to equip people with the weapons and equipment you need, because you need to like kind of gift it to them and then hope that they just naturally equip it. And even then, anyone you bring along will always be underleveled, more underleveled than you want. So they're never really that useful in combat, and it just kind of feels like you're dragging some innocent person along while monsters constantly pummel them to death. Like I don't like it. It's not a system I enjoy in this game. It just feels awkward and not fun. So I went through every dungeon basically entirely solo. If I was playing on a harder difficulty, I imagine I might have had to engage with the party system. So admittedly, I was skipping out on a system that is probably necessary, but I like that the game at least has a means to avoid it, right? These types of games are meant to be whatever fun you enjoy. And for me, I enjoyed going through the dungeon solo without dragging along innocent people. You want to be living here? I hope you would. Since I'm going to live here. Wait, what?
But I'm just Chiss.
But I'm just little old Chiss.
Okay, just
Didn't I
Chiss.
tell you? So today, you
This
just
is your
fucking met me.
house.
You've just met. I could be a murderer.
No.
Within the dungeons as well, at the start usually, like right at the start, there's the normal farm animals. You can bring just the normal animals like food, like the withered grass or the medical herbs or whatever. And if they like the thing you gave them, they'll become your friend. And if you've built a monster barn, they'll come back to the barn with you, right? And you can name them whatever you want. Oh, this is Crubbo. This is Crubbo. 2B's Crubbo. Once they're at the barn, they can join you in dungeons as well. They're another party option. Again, I didn't do that at any point with the monsters, but as well as that, they can actually help around the farm. The bonding system works the same in the monsters that it does people. Like, you can bring them gifts and the monsters themselves will start to like you more if you keep bringing them gifts and brushing them and etc. They will then help around the farm, such as planting seeds for you and watering crops for you, right? So the higher the bonding skill, the more they are to do this kind of thing. They do get tired and need days off, just like normal employees, but shut the fuck up, get back out there and get watering my crops, shithead, or whatever I fucking named you. Come here, you butts. Now, I mentioned it briefly just before, but I do really need to talk about the cooking and crafting system in this game. The little house you live in this game is pre-built. Whenever you buy some kind of upgrade to your cooking bench or buy a forge or whatever, there's a specific place it gets put in your house, right? You don't get to move them around in any way. You do get furniture like tables and chairs and like flower pots. You can put those where you want, doesn't matter. And your bed is always where it needs to be.
This is your bed. It's where you fuck.
The things you need to buy the cooking and the crafting benches and stuff like that is money and wood, right? You get wood by axing down the branches and the tree stumps that you'll find in your farm and around the dungeons. Wood is the only other spendable resource in this game. There's only one, and it's wood. You'll pick up the wood, you'll take it to the spot where the wood goes, and then that's how much wood you have. And typically you need like 120 wood for things, right? So you'll be collecting a lot of fucking wood. Now there's a series of different cooking benches. There's the knife, there's the mixer, there's the oven, frying pan, your basic cooking, stuff like that, right? And so each section has a different type of thing you can cook. But when it comes to crafting, there's a crafting bench and there's a forge. This forge is used for making weapons and new farming tools, and the crafting bench is used for your armor and like your bracelets and stuff like that, right? Of course, cooking and crafting and forging have their own skill levels associated, right? So when you're cooking something, it'll cost more stamina to cook something if you haven't upgraded your skill enough. The higher level the thing you're trying to cook or craft, the more stamina it'll consume. When you cook something, it has a chance to fail, right? There's a percentage of how likely it is to succeed. Each time you cook, and as your cooking gets better, the success rate gets higher. Each time you fail, your skill will still go up, but you'll receive a disastrous dish. So it still uses your resources and it still uses your stamina. So you want to do this a few times until your stamina like runs out, I guess, which can be annoying. There's been multiple times I've died while trying to cook, which sucks. But with crafting, when it comes to the forge and the crafting bench, there's still the success percentage. But if you fail, nothing happens. It still uses your stamina, but it doesn't use your resources. So if you fail, you just kind of keep trying until you succeed, which is fine. The way you receive the like recipes to make things, both in cooking and crafting, is through what's called recipe bread, which is a hilarious concept. So you gotta go down to the restaurant, you gotta talk to the cook, and usually he's made like between 3 to 5 maybe recipe breads, and you pick which one you want. So each is specific. There's cooking bread, there's farming bread, there's weapon bread, there's armor bread, etc., right? When you consume one, it'll give you a new recipe in that category. The higher level you are in that skill, you'll receive more recipes later, right? So you'll eat some and you'll hit a cap where it says, oh, I didn't learn anything from eating that cooking bread, which can be annoying because you still eat the bread. It still is consumed and gone, right? So you've spent that money, you've received the bread, and now you've wasted it. The only way to find out you're capped on that is by eating recipe bread. The only way to find out if you've upgraded enough to receive new recipes is by eating recipe bread. There's really no way to avoid wasting the bread, and I think that's a bit of a flaw in this game specifically. And what you receive with the recipe bread, the recipe you learn is always random as well. So like if you are doing a request that requires you to hand in a specific cooked item and you don't have that recipe, you have to just keep going to the restaurant and doing the crapshoot of hoping you learn that specific recipe, which can get a little annoying if you've wasted the 3 recipe breads and you didn't receive that recipe. Now you've got to wait for the next day to try again, right? It's a little bit of a frustrating system. It's a bit flawed, I would say, but it's not the worst either. What is good about the cooking and the failing at cooking is if you fail a dish, it creates, a failed dish, or at worst, a disastrous dish. Oh no, now I've just got to go feed my garbage to Sophia, which I really love. I love that there's a character that justifies every bad thing you've made in the game. If you've made a crap dish, if you've caught a moldy boot from the river, give it to Sophia. She'll fucking love it. Now, when it comes to the cooking, the crafting, I didn't really engage with these systems a whole lot. Some story moments require you to use the cooking and the crafting. It's not a fun system. It's not very well implemented, I would say. Like, you get all these things and it tells you how to make them, but when it comes to upgrading your weapons or armor, you can just kind of use anything, and it feels quite arbitrary. Like I never really was confident what I was doing by using something over and over again that's like upgrading my sword by like 1% attack. It just was not doing it for me. I didn't like doing it. I prefer just using the stock weapons, in that if a sword does 117 damage, that's the amount of damage it does. By going to this crafting thing and putting that up by 1 every once in a while, it's not great, to upgrade your skills is kind of this pedantic system of like making a shitty scythe over and over and over and over and over and over and over just so that skill goes up. It never upgraded enough to the point where I felt like, okay, now I can make some really cool stuff. It felt like I would have had to do that every day, and it's not a fun thing. It's not fun to make useless items just so one skill incrementally goes up. Like I didn't enjoy this system. I didn't use it a whole lot. I did use it enough to get through the game, and I used it enough so that then the game wasn't, I guess, too hard, but like, again, it's not a fun system.
Riley, I want you to imagine something. I'm going to send you a music video.
I'm very busy. You've got to wait.
I'm going to send you a music video. I want you to imagine.
You got to wait, Liam.
Yeah, that's fine. You just have to listen. You don't have to click it yet. But when you do click it, I want you to imagine.
Fuck!
That every time they say Chris,
I can't hear you. You gotta wait.
Say cheers.
Okay.
Cheers.
So now I've gone through all the systems in the game. I've given you all the details you need to kind of understand, right? I played this game for about 27 hours, something like that. It's important to know all these systems for going into the next few games, and it's important, I guess, to understand what it feels like to play this game, right? A typical day in this game is you wake up, you do all the farming I described. By about, I would say usually like 9 or 10, you've finished all your farming. Then you can choose to run into town, shove a moldy boot in Sophia's face. She goes, "Thank you so much, I love moldy boot." You run away. You check the request boards to see if anyone has something they want done. Does Sophia want something done? Oh, she does. I'll go back and talk to Sophia. "What is it you need, Sophia?" And she'll tell you. There'll be a whole little story thing. You might try to complete the request if you can. If not, you'll try to set it up for later. Whether you complete the request or not, typically then maybe you'll go into a dungeon and you'll kind of fight in the dungeon up until you die, or you feel like leaving, or you straight up complete the dungeon. Again, there's only 4. Once you've somewhat done with dungeoning, maybe sometimes it's like about 3 p.m., you'll then go back to town, and I typically would then fish for a while up until 5 p.m. or just before, so that then I could run home and try to shove as much fish into the shipping bin as I can, because at 5 p.m. is when Karina comes and tries to take everything out, right? So I would run home and put the fish in there, and hooray, now I've got a bigger payday because I shoved squids in there or whatever. Every once in a while as well, there's these little town events, like one where the townspeople throw beans and you have to like purposely get hit by the beans. Town competitions such as like who can catch the biggest fish, who can catch the most fish, who's made the most profitable crop this season. Little things like that kind of keep the gameplay refreshing and keep you feeling involved with the town. If you win one of these competitions, you just get some little items like food or potions or money or whatever. If you lose the competitions, it's not a big deal. It's just kind of a fun thing to engage with if you want. Not doing it doesn't leave you at a big detriment. So if it's not your cup of tea doing the town events, it doesn't matter. And each season, the town kind of changes very slightly. Like for example, in summer, the lake becomes open for swimming, which now means that people will change into their swimsuits. Please, I told you, Rune Factory, please don't be a fuck game. Like, don't be a oh. Okay. Now, with all that in mind, I do find all of these little pieces in this game specifically come together. I keep saying that. It's very ominous, isn't it? I find all these pieces come together to make a really good package. Like, none of it is too complex. It's all just simple enough to keep you inclined to keep playing, right? The farming isn't too overwhelming. It's pretty simple. The combat is pretty simple. Talking to people and bonding with people is simple. The game never asks that much of you, and it feels fun to just kind of play casually. You can see why it worked so well on the DS and why so many people loved it so much. The story itself is pretty good, I would say. I'm not going into detail here about what it's about, or I just don't feel like it's worth spoiling anything. The story itself is fun enough. It has some interesting moments, and I felt inclined to see how it turns out, right? It's not terribly long, it doesn't ask too much of you, and it's just a fun kind of game. You know, these games kind of have a natural progression of the start of the game, the middle, and the end. You know, it's to do with how your farm kind of gets better as you go. You'll see at the start, you can only really do like the first 2 rows of sections, but then by the end, maybe you can fill out the entire farm. I didn't, because I'm really fucking lazy, but you could if you wanted. This game's progression from the start game to the end game is really satisfying to get to. You never feel like you've fallen behind or missed out by not engaging in any specific system, and I think that's really admirable. I played this game for about 26 hours, and I would have happily played another 26 more. If I wasn't planning on playing 3 other games after this, I probably would have just kept playing this game after the story finished, because it's just a fun, light romp, really. I feel like I've made my thoughts here pretty clear. Rune Factory 3 is really fun. Delightful game with delightful cast of characters and really kind of well thought out gameplay systems that are just simple enough to keep you going. After I was kind of reaching the end of this game, I became very excited to play Rune Factory 4. I thought if Rune Factory 4 is just a different cast of characters, a new story, and like a different coat of paint, I'm all the way on board for this whole series, you know? To get into Rune, just follow me, alright? So. So, Rune Factory 4 opens with this weird freak named Lest, but for our purposes his name is Steve. He's traveling over on this airship looking thing. He's going somewhere to do something. It seems what he's going to do is really important. There's a big emphasis on that. But then he's attacked by these two night guys who hit him over the head, get rid of his memories, and then he falls off the airship and falls directly onto an ancient dragon. Come on. Okay, bye. This ancient dragon's name is Ventuswil, and she is kind of the overseer of this town called Selphia. Ventuswil assumes that you are a prince that they have been waiting on, and since you've lost all your memories, you assume the same thing. They immediately set you up then in their prince's chambers and immediately set you out to work on the farm, which makes perfect sense. I mean, if Prince Harry rocked up on my doorstep, I'd get him to work on my garden as well. Awkwardly though, eventually, the real prince, Arthur, does rock up, and seeing that they've immediately whipped the assumed prince into working on a farm, he lets you continue pretending to be the prince. Very convenient if you ask me, but anyway. Now this is really all the setup you need, right? Again, I'm not getting into the stories here in these games because there isn't a lot to say, and I want you to feel safe going into these games knowing absolutely nothing except for the gameplay. But just like the last game, now your quest is to go around town and introduce yourself to... Hold on, is this game... This game really fucking ugly? Now this is very awkward, right? Because I've left out this detail intentionally because I actually didn't know it at all going in. When the developers of Rune Factory were going through and remastering the old titles, they actually started with 4. So Rune Factory 4 Special came out in 2021, and Rune Factory 3 Special came out in 2023. So despite Rune Factory 4 being the next game along, it actually looks so much worse than 3 that it's mind-blowing, right? And there's a few kind of factors at play here that I guess they learned to weed out when it came time to make Rune Factory 3 Special Edition. I was immediately angry with myself for not appreciating the simple art style that was 3. Like these very clean and simple designs, like it all looks very particular and bright and colorful and beautiful in retrospect now. When I was playing it, I didn't really appreciate it, but now I can acknowledge that I should have, right? Because a lot of the models in this game, like you look at the 3D models, they're all very simple. Clearly for like a DS or a 3DS type models, they look horrendously ugly. I would say there's a charming quality to the models, especially the woolies. They look kind of weird and fucked up, but I like them. What's kind of unforgivable though is that every item in the game has passed through this like pixel mesh filter, right? Instead of redesigning each of the items like they have in 3 and kind of simplifying the designs, it seems maybe they struggled with the kind of pixel art style presented in the 3DS. And so instead of going through it again, they just kind of chucked this filter on it. And everything in this game looks fucking horrendous. It looks like a melted, awful version of itself, all of it. You can see that they didn't even really go through and like check the designs because a lot of these images have like the artifacting of the filter messing up essentially. The aesthetics of this game and everything about it has just kind of turned to this like complete goop. It doesn't have a cohesive art style. It's just kind of this muddy mess of goop and meshing. Like it's really ugly. I would go as far to say this might be the ugliest game I've ever played. This game is fucking ugly as fuck. This is like the ugliest game I think I've ever played. It's quite an immediate stain on the game, and it's something I kind of really struggled to get through. I thought maybe give it time, it'll become charming and fun, but no, it just kind of is this gross stain on everything, and I struggled to get past it. But regardless, we're gonna move on. Have you ever had a Jaffa cake? They're not very good. I don't like them. Since the last game's cast of characters were so strong, I was really excited to meet the new cast of characters for this game. What I didn't mention right at the front here is that when Rune Factory 4 opens, you actually get to pick your gender. I can't remember the name of the female version. I should have written it down, and I didn't. Kill me in the comments, I guess. I'm so sorry. But you do get to pick your gender at the start of this game. And with that in mind, Rune Factory 4 actually doesn't support gay marriage. But a bizarre thing to just stumble upon with this game. The gender you pick does matter, because if you go as a woman, which is my preferred in-game gender, don't read into that, you can't date other women, and same if you're a guy, you can't date other guys, right? Now, since this is a 3DS game, I guess they limited themselves to the amount of characters in the game, so when you first open it, I played as a guy, my name was Steve, and you have essentially 4 romance options, which immediately feels very limiting, especially given that there's this full town of like other people. Like a lot of these people, I was baffled that they weren't romance options, like Illuminata, who's like this detective lady. Like I don't really understand why she wasn't romanceable, but whatever, I digress. But we'll come back to the bonding later. It's again, I mentioned up front because that was my experience. I looked up like, oh, should I be careful what gender I pick? And the answer was yes. And then I discovered, oh, this uh-oh. What? But we move on to the farming, and surely this can't be too drastic of a change, right? Surely the die-hard system of 3 that was working magnifique, they couldn't have changed it too much, right? Like it has to be. So you go to your farm and you immediately notice that instead of the 3x3 farm, it is now a 2x2. Ooh. Okay, well that's alright. It's fine, as long as they changed the stat. How could they do this to me? Now here's what I don't understand, and this is extra pedantic of me, right? I see that plain and simple. Why would they change this though? I mean, they've made it 2x2, whatever. The stack limit is still 9. So it's kind of this awkward number where if you hold it down, it'll fill up 4 spots, but then knock the next 4, and then the next one's only 1. So like, why would they do it like this? It baffles me. Just change the stack limit to 8, or make it so it's like easier for when you use up all your seeds that are equipped, it immediately goes to the next one if you still have them. Again, a minor thing. It's so minor, but it's just that little like tick on like all these kind of stacking things that are just kind of pissing me off. Because now I have to learn my 8 timetables, and it creates this awkward dynamic in your inventory where like I'll have 9 full stack of something, and the next one might only go to what would it be, 6? No, 7, right? But on the up, farming is exactly as it was in 3, so I don't need to like re-explain all of it again. It's the same system. You kind of clear out the garbage that's there, till the soil, plant a seed, you water it. The plants are yellow, you water it. Otherwise you don't really need to water them, but it's encouraged you water them every day. Pretty simple stuff, really. There's no point going into detail again. Given you now effectively have fewer spaces for crops, the game makes up for this by having most harvestable crops yield a result of between 1 and 5 vegetables/flowers. So despite only planting 1 seed, you'll be given a pretty big return, which can be really satisfying actually. I'd say this gives the farming a better feeling of reward overall, as it's a lot of fun to see these massive stacks of veggies and flowers. Plus, it gives you extra to use for cooking or gifting to people. One change here is that the shipping bin is now collected at 8 a.m. instead of 5 p.m. Again, this kind of feels like a minor change. I preferred the 5 p.m. because it kind of meant that I could just do what I want during the day, and as long as everything I collected and harvested and fished was in there by 5 p.m., I'd still get the payout. What the 8 a.m. is meant to encourage you to do is to do your farming more at night, I believe, which feels awkward to do given that when you wake up, you basically always want to water your plants anyway. but I guess they wanted you to give you more reason to like explore the town or the dungeons in the morning instead of just slamming straight to farming. But wait, this doesn't work either, because the shops are all open at 8:30, right? So if you need to go buy seeds, you have to stand there and wait anyway. It feels like it's still encouraged for you to wake up at 6 a.m. and just farm as fast as you fucking can and get all your shit in the bin by 8 a.m. Again, very minor. It contributes to the overall feeling of this game. It feels like now, instead of the window being I wake up and I can farm and put in the bin and, you know, take my time and have some fun, now it's like I'm up and I have to farm and I have to get in the bin. You don't have to play it that way, but with the way these kind of systems all contradict with each other, it feels like you're kind of forced to, at least from my perspective. Like, what am I meant to do? Wake up at 6 a.m. and hit the dungeon? I don't fucking think so, dude. I'm still waking up. One other change is that crops no longer have seasonal exclusivity, right? So like turnips can be grown in any season, same with onions and tomatoes, all this. They can all be grown any season. You just have to read the descriptions, right? Because some of them can't be grown in winter, or at least are not encouraged to anyway. Essentially what happens is some plants now have seasonal bonuses for being grown in their allocated season. Some plants have no seasonal bonuses, right? So that's just kind of the way of it. I would say this isn't a negative change. I preferred the seasonal exclusivity because it created a very interesting aesthetic shift between seasons on your farm, but it's a small thing. I feel like I'm stacking up a lot of negative here right at the start, so I'll pull back. The seasonal exclusivity being gone is fine. It's not an issue. It's not an issue. Please don't kill me, please. Now, part of this ever-growing oeuvre of systems as well is that they've added a soil quality system, right? So you have this kind of compost bin that is meant to encourage you to put any kind of grass or weeds in there, and it'll maintain the quality of the soil. If you don't kind of keep this full of grass and weeds, the quality of your soil will start to lessen and you'll get lower quality crops. Which makes sense, right? I think the system is fine. It's essentially a good excuse for you to be doing more weeding and you have a place to put them. It feels like they've put this here in place of Sophia, which in the last game, any weeds and grass you pulled up, you just give to her because she fucking loved it. But there isn't anyone like that in this game, so put it in a bin instead, I guess, instead of feeding it to the local weirdo. Sophia, my beloved. Gone but not forgotten. Another small, understated system is the fact that items and crops you sell in the shipping bin now create this kind of stock market effect, where the price of things can fluctuate depending on how frequently you ship things. I only mention this in passing as it's another system the game asks you to think about, but it was kind of just outside of my scope of understanding to give any thought to it all. I just wanted to grow my fave veggies and flowers, and that was what I did, regardless of their standing on the stock market or whatever. You can capture animals the exact same way as you can in 3, though again there's a different vibe here as they won't help out on the farm automatically like they did in 3. Instead, you do genuinely need to build a relationship with them before they start feeling comfortable helping out on the farm, meaning you have to actively give them gifts beyond just brushing them. I didn't engage with this system in any way because I am the most stubborn person alive and didn't want to waste gifts on animals when they could be given to the hot babes around town. I'm at the end of talking about farming, right? And I feel this need to make it known where I was going in here. I didn't come to this wanting to say bad things about this game. When I opened up Rune Factory 4, my heart was so excited and open to anything. I really wanted to love this game. What you're hearing now is from the end of playing it for admittedly 10 hours. It hit a point for me where, despite my just insistent attempts to come around on this game, all of these kind of little systems just started to build up and really hurt me, I would say. I hit a point where just the disappointment of playing this game, I couldn't bear it anymore and I had to move on. At the start of the video, I never said that I beat all these games. I've played them enough that I feel comfortable talking about them. But despite this rough feeling around the farming, let's move on. You know, there has to be more positives to this game. We just have to discover them. What? So we move along to the fishing. The fishing is exactly the same, thank God. no changes at all, right? You still cast the lure, a fish will bite at it, you pull it in. It's the same skill system as before, it's all the same. There is one change here, and it is absolutely for the better. They've put in a little bit of coding here that accounts for if multiple fish see your lure. They'll kind of come over, one will start bobbing at it, and if a second one does, you'll kind of see them all stop and then kind of readjust so that they're separate from each other, and then they might bob at it at different intervals, so it's easier to track. Right? They don't just start hammering at it crazy style. This is beautiful stuff, and it's absolutely a change for the better. And the same with 3, everything you harvest or every fish you catch can be cooked up, it can just straight up be eaten, or it can be gifted to people, right? It's all exactly the same. Though the cooking in this game is exactly the same, it has a different aura. When you cook meals or forge items here, you still have a chance to fail, but it's no longer percentage based. Rather, it's based purely on your cooking / crafting / forging skill, and if you have the ideal amount of stamina to cook something. If the meal or item exceeds the amount of stamina you have, then it'll fail and you'll pass out. If you have the amount of skill required and the correct ingredients, it'll succeed automatically. What's more awkward is the way you acquire the benches. In Rune Factory 3, if you wanted a new piece of your kitchen, you'd go over to the restaurant, you'd buy it, and it would be there. In Rune Factory 4, if you want some new pieces to the kitchen, you have to go and get a cooking license. To do that, you have to have the correct amount of prince points, and then you take this little quiz about the basics of cooking. After that, then you can go to the restaurant, you have to show them your license, and then you can buy sections of the kitchen which are given to you physically for you to hold over your head, take home, and place down awkwardly in your house. That's right, in Rune Factory 4, the crafting benches and all these types of benches are completely customizable in where you place them around the room. Really great stuff. Now, instead of a tight, clean layout that was in 3, now you can make your room look really muddy and awful with shit scattered everywhere because none of it looks clean no matter how much futzing you do. Sorry, I feel myself getting sour now. That's just really unlike me. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry. I'll pull back. I don't like being able to choose where to put the benches. This is probably a me thing. I think in this game, given how ugly the art style already is, having these benches go up to your own design, like it still has that mesh filter on them, so they just kind of look like these big muddy blobs, and it makes the room look dark and muddy and horrible. And with the being able to put the cooking benches, the layout of the room, you kind of have to put them in a way where they kind of overlay with each other really awkwardly. It's a system that I feel like they should have put in and gone, no, this doesn't work. But what are the prince points, I hear you asking ever so politely, and thank you for that. Well, in this game, since you're assuming the role of a prince, you get given prince points, which can be used to upgrade various parts of the town, such as adding new shops and upgrading old shops. You can upgrade your backpack space and like your storage space in general. You can add events to the calendar, such as the events I described from 3, like fishing competitions or the bean throwing one, or one where you dodge buffaloes. You get prince points from completing requests, from defeating monsters in dungeons, and just from generally talking to people. Prince points thing is kind of a small bit, right? But it's another small bit that contributes to the overall oeuvre of this game that I've described. It's another new system on top of the new system of like the soil, on top of the new system of the fact that not only the new prince points currency, there's also now a 4th spendable currency, which is stone. So not only are you collecting wood, but you're collecting stone. And wood and stone are used with the prince point system to upgrade the stores and that kind of stuff, as well as buying the benches and whatever else, right? So this is another new system on top of another new system. I can see it being good, at least that it's another tangible payoff to completing dungeons and doing requests. That's good, I would say, but we'll see how it kind of starts to futz with things later. Now, as I said, you use this to upgrade the stores, right? In 3, the stores got upgraded automatically from completing dungeons. What that means for this game is that you no longer upgrade stores automatically, you have to do it by your own discretion, which means you have to have the correct amount of points and resources and able to upgrade stores, which can really, really slow down the progress of this game, because when you go to the next dungeon, you'll be severely under-equipped for it, which is troublesome. This will come back later. If you go to a dungeon and you find you're under-equipped, you have have to either spend some time trying to build up enough points or whatever to upgrade the stores so that you can buy the right equipment, which usually costs a lot of money, so you have to spend time building up your economy. Or you can go through the even slower system of trying to upgrade your forging skill by doing what I described in 3 of just making the same thing over and over and over and over and over and over and incrementally increasing that skill over and over, potentially passing out and dying in the process, doing it over and over and over so that then the forge skill is increased enough that then you can go and get recipe bread to make the higher level stuff, which then will require the resources to make the higher level stuff. Again, another slow process with the already evolving systems. Or you can do the luck-based version of going into the dungeons and hoping you come across a chest that gives you a well-leveled sword or weapon of some kind, right? And of course, the weapons you pick up are never the weapons that you would want to use. I like the longsword, but at some point the game gave me these 2 daggers, and they were so high level I had to use them, but I didn't like using them, and I think that sucks. This is now, you're starting to see the problems here. Motherfucker. Fucking die, you stupid fish. No. You are fucking kidding me. Please, you're dead. Surely. Oh. No. No, you fucking... Oh, that's great. That's really good. Oh, that's really good. Really good. Oh my fucker. Oh my... No, please. That's great. That's really good. Oh, that's really great. Really great. Fuck off. Fuck off. Ridiculous fucking game. That's horrible. Like, genuinely. That plays like shit. Fuck's sakes. Fuck. Let me out! Oh, I did it. Thank fucking God. Hi, Ricky. That's you. Now this goes straight into the dungeons and the combat for me. So the fighting here is exactly the same as it was in 3. You still attack with circle, you still build up your weapon skills in the same way, you know, that skill increases. They've kind of tidied up the combat here like in a kind of subtle way. I can't really describe it, you just kind of have to play the game to see what I mean. It just kind of feels a little bit different. The main difference here is that they were extra ambitious with the amount of dungeons and the kind of overworld in general. In 3 you had your 4 dungeons. This game has an indeterminate amount of dungeons. Again, I didn't finish this game, so it's got quite a few. The overworld is quite big. Like, you're given all these kind of paths that interweave with each other, and if you get in the angle of one, you'll open up a shorter path kind of thing. You'll find other crops around like you would in 3. There's little secrets you can find. Like, they put a lot of effort into this overworld, which I think is pretty nice actually, because on top of that you can just warp around. Like, you'll find key points where then you can just warp to the different points, so you don't need to travel to each dungeon every single time. With this in mind, and given this kind of creative freedom and willingness to expand, the dungeons here are a lot better, I would say. They're, at least theoretically, more well designed and better to fight in. You see kind of enemy placements at certain points. You see these little puzzles and the way the dungeons kind of weave in and out of itself. Some dungeons you come back to like a second time and there's like another layer to them. You see these kind of things. So I would say the dungeons and the kind of exploration experience in this game is at least theoretically better than it is in 3. I say theoretical because then we have to get into the progression of this game, as I've just already spoiled, I guess. The way the combat kind of flows here, you'll go through one dungeon, easy peasy lemon squeezy, you kill the enemies, whatever, you fight the boss. Usually, how I felt is like, okay, great, I've done that, let's move on to the next dungeon. The next dungeon will then be bullshit. Your weapon will do seemingly 0 damage to any of the enemies, and I mean 0, and the enemies will kill you in 1 hit. And you'll think to yourself, what am I doing? Am I doing something wrong here? Am I playing this game incorrectly? Is this the wrong place? No, you're at the right place. You just need to do those systems I described earlier to upgrade your weapons properly, I guess. or just keep in grinding against the dungeon, going in, leveling up your skills, maybe dying in the process, and then trying again. It's this kind of thing, right? It encourages you to grind in a game where the grinding is implicit in a certain way. The way it flowed in 3 felt really balanced and nice. If I completed a dungeon, I'd go to the next one and it'd be hard, and I obviously wouldn't get to the end, but at least it kind of was this incremental where it felt fun and balanced to get through. Here, I just feel like I'm banging my head against a wall, hoping to eventually get through. Of course, there's the system of bringing like villagers along to be part of your party. In this game, you can bring more than one, which I never did. I did engage with this a little bit here and there because it felt like it was a necessary part of playing this game, but it's the same thing I described before. It feels awkward. You bring people along, they'll get the shit beaten out of them and then die, and then you'll just be dragging them through the dungeon awkwardly. And of course, you can give them potions to heal them, but like, as I described, the economy in this game is quite tight. So like, if you're using potions on people and yourself, then that means it's so many more potions you have to buy. Things are really expensive here. I remember I would run out of money in this game quite easily. So I didn't like bringing people along. I found it not a fun system still. Believe it or not, I was trying to get through this game on normal until I got really sick of the damage sponge enemies. So I changed it to easy, and it's still the same issue. The enemies are still these damage sponges. They just don't attack as frequently as they once did. Why? Why not just make it so fighting them is See, it's this amalgamation of changed systems that really start to grind on you at this point. Because if you want to get better, you have to engage with the forging. The forging forces you to get with the farming, which forces you to go into previous dungeons more. In 3, it felt like these things were kind of just, you could engage with them if you wanted, but there was other means to get things that were easier. If you wanted the higher level weapons, they were there for you to forge if you so chose, but you didn't have to. Here, you are forced to do these things, and it makes everything you do eventually start to feel like a chore. I don't want to use the forge, but I have to. I don't really want to use these prince points, but I have to. It's this kind of thing where now all these kind of new bits that you might have ground against in the last game, now I am forced to hone in on, and I don't like it. So with that, we move along to the bonding, which of course was my favorite system in 3. Now, there is only 4 people to romance, with it eventually expanding to 6. But surely, I mean, there's less people, surely they've fleshed out these options a bit more, given that they were able to focus in on them a little bit harder. Now, I can't speak to the men in this game, because the men in this game didn't interest me, which I wouldn't have been able to do anything with anyway, given I was playing as a man, and we all know gay marriage is a sin. I don't believe that, to be very clear. That's not a belief of mine. That was a joke. But let's talk a little bit about the women in this game. So we'll start with Zhao Pai. She's a seemingly Chinese girl who helps run the hot springs. You have Amber, an innocent girl who helps run the flower store. You have Margaret, a beautiful elf lady who sings at the local restaurant. And the last I'll mention is Forte, a local serious night lady. Now it feels like I'm summing them up very simply. That's because they are very simple characters. It feels like instead of the kind of wacky, stupid characters that were apparent in 3, they've instead gone for these more grounded personalities, and I think the game is severely lacking because of it. Sure, a puppet lady appears. There's a lady who's a puppet lady, but she's grumpy, and I don't like grumpy puppet lady. There isn't kind of the quirkiness of 3, right? Like there was Karina, who was like the sleepy shopkeeper with her mom, who was always like hounding on her. There was, Sophia, who always talked in opposites, and there was Daria, who always screamed rainbow. Like I remember these quirks, like it was all weird. These were weird freaks, but I remember them and I liked them a lot. There's none of that here. It's not in the game. So why would I take any interest with any of these 6 options? And they're all fucking boring. The only ones I was really kind of interested in were Margaret and Forte, and I feel like in that sense I was really only interested in Margaret because she was the hottest one, and that was as shallow as that puddle was. And then I was interested in Forte because the kind of knight character is appealing. She has grounds to be a really quirky character, but again, she's just kind of a serious knight. The one quirky thing I guess about her is that she likes sweet things, which is exactly as on the nose as you think it is. I felt like I was kind of forcing myself to come around on Forte, but what ground against me is her design. She has this kind of knight dress thing that they've given her, and it's like this insistence on femininity that doesn't need to be there. I really don't know why they didn't just give her pants. It kind of makes her look like this giant cone triangle thing, so she lacks the intimidation of the kind of cool knight character that she's meant to be. Instead, she's just kind of this awkward metal cone. The one character with a proper quirk, I guess, is Clarica, who is one of the two butlers in this game. She's somebody who goes and collects the stuff from the shipping bin. Her one quirk is that she's sleepy. And again, that's as deep as that puddle goes. And you might say, well, Karina from 3 was sleepy as well, and that's basically as far as her quirk went, right? So why didn't I level the criticism there? Well, it's because the request system in 3 allowed you to understand these characters and expand on them and kind of see where each of their quirks were coming from in a really interesting way, where you were able to follow every part of it at your own discretion. This request system in 4 has been thrown to the fucking wind. I don't know why they would get rid of this and change it in the way they did, right? I voiced that my initial concern of a request system in a game like this is that it's just going to be, oh, go get 10 turnips, go kill 12 skeletons or whatever, and that's the start and the end of the request. 3, although some of them boiled down to that, still had more writing and lore and like character work to go with the requests. Here, it's exactly as I feared. The requests are about as deep as that. You have a character who just says, I want 10 turnips. You select the request and you immediately fulfill it if you happen to have 10 turnips on you. You don't need to go track them down and discuss the request with anyone. The person who put in the request is completely irrelevant to the request itself. There's no way for you to properly get to know these characters on interpersonal levels. There's none of that writing that was apparent in 3. So it creates this further divide between you and the rest of the town. You still feel like a stranger even after 10 hours in this game, because there's nothing in place that lets you get closer to the characters they've put in. Maybe these characters do have more quirks and depth that are meant to be there, but in the experience I had, nothing like that appeared, and I was really trying to get Margaret at least. I was giving her turnips every single day. Same with Zhao Pai. I'm gifting these people, and you see the friendship meter go up, but nothing would appear that would allow me to actually do anything with these people. They're still just kind of these wandering strangers. So even on that level, like, it's still this big change that doesn't work. You know, in the previous game, I would pick the requests based on who put in the request. Here, it doesn't matter. The person who put in the request is irrelevant. You can even select even 2 or 3 requests a day, depending on how far along that track you are. But even then, like, it's just simple crap. That doesn't mean anything. Doing the request isn't particularly fun because it's just the same shit you'd expect from any basic 5 out of 10 video game.
What the hell?
Now, I feel like I've talked about this game far less than I have with 3, and I do think it is apt, given I didn't spend as much time with it. If the characters are fleshed out more later and I just didn't get to it, I'm sorry. As I said, I played about 27 hours of Rune Factory 3, and I would have played another 27. I played 10 hours of this, and it felt like I was convincing myself to go through each hour more. And at that point, I thought, I've experienced this game. I've felt the disappointment, and I've given it a few chances to maybe get better. There was some dungeons early on which I just didn't want to get through, but I forced myself through them anyway, and I hit a point where it didn't seem like this game was going to end anytime soon, and the disappointment had set in. I felt like if I'm opening up a game that is actively making me feel sad, I don't really want to play that game anymore. But this is a really heavy note to end on here for Rune Factory 4, so I can sense that I ruined the vibe, right? I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I wanted to love this game so dearly, but these systems were just like this on me. But how about I mention one kind of positive just to kind of cap this off? Perhaps risking kind of spoilers here, but early in the game, bosses you defeat each turn into a new villager that gets added to the town. I really kind of like this twist because, I mean, in 3, if you completed a boss or you completed a dungeon, the satisfaction in that was knowing that you've ticked a box on a list of only 4 dungeons. The satisfaction they present here is to know that the game itself is literally expanding. You get a new character to the roster, you kind of see how they interact in town a little bit more. Once you've it feels like you've finished unlocking the new people in the town, it then makes you wonder what the next few bosses are going to do. And the story here is a lot more present than it was in 3. You see some bigger changes and consequences based off of what kind of happens in the story. Not that you're given any choice or say in anything, but still the progression feels like it has consequences. There's points where maybe a character is like angry at you and doesn't talk to you in the town because of what you've done. You see certain characters kind of get closed off or re-added or change depending on where you're at in the story, and I think that's a really commendable effort. It gives a bit more satisfaction to progressing the story here because there is that tangible reward to completing dungeons. There is a literal change to the world, and I think that's really great. This is the end of Rune Factory 4. When I had hit my limit in this game, my interest in the series had now been subverted down from excitement down to curiosity, which is not a particularly good feeling. At this point, I was more interested in, well, 5 looks quite different from the rest of the series. What will it have to offer? Will it be any better or worse than 4? I guess we'll have to find out. Alright, so since I'm talking about a series of farming games, I personally don't have any experience with farming whatsoever, so I thought it was pertinent to get somebody with a tremendous amount of farming experience on the show to give their perspective. So I've got my father, Bruce, on today. Now, Bruce, how long have you been a farmer?
Oh, I've been plowing fields for probably 45 years.
Now, what kind of things did you typically farm?
Potatoes, that's it. Potatoes.
Just potatoes and only potatoes, hey?
White potatoes, in fact.
With that in mind, do you perhaps know the proper method to farming turnips? How do you get them to go pink?
Well, that's a good question. You probably would have to use earth that is colored pink to do that.
Pink earth?
Pink
Where
earth.
do you find that?
The pink parts of the world.
Pink parts of the world. Any insight as to where that is, or is that a trade secret?
Peru. There's lots of red earth in Peru.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Do you prefer the John Deere 9R390 or the Kubota M108?
Oh, the John Deere is far and away a better vehicle. Better.
You think so? What makes it better?
It's just more reliable. Then breaks down.
But with that in mind, would you say that the John Deere is perhaps only better due to brand recognition? They're a more expensive tractor, but is that due to the brand alone, or are they truly a better tractor?
Reliability has no name.
As the Kubota M108 is considered dependable and for a mid-sized tractor, it could be considered lacking as it's a more affordable tractor, though with that in mind, it might be considered that you're saving money because it's a more affordable tractor. What do you have to say about that?
Well, look here, young man. I've owned both of them, their vehicles. And I can tell you the John Deere was far and away a better vehicle.
Really?
Yes.
How long did you have the Kubota?
No, 5 years.
5 years. Now, what would you use the John Deere for over the Kubota?
I think I answered this question. Farm potatoes.
You know what? I don't like your attitude at all. You're being rude, and you're being disrespectful. Get out.
Okay.
Get the fuck out. Okay. Rune Factory 3 is the first 3D game in the series. The game opens with a weirdo of your desired gender fighting some bees very bravely. This brave weirdo is you, Alice, but for our purposes, Wrist. Just before the incident, Wrist woke up without any memories. Typical. But then after the fight, you pass out again, and 2 women named Lucy and Priscilla decide to take you back to the town of Rigbarth. Rigbarth? where you are taken to the doctor to decide whether it is appropriate for you to stay in town or for them to kick you to the fucking curb. So what they do then is essentially take you to the local defense force for them to decide. You hold your hand up to a weird orb that strangely looks like an arcade machine, and guess what? You're allowed to stay. Hip hooray! On one condition. Now you must work for Seed, the town's local, like, militia defense people, I guess. Not only are you now part of Seed, completing tasks, but guess what, bitch? You have to go farm. I feel like the line here, the reasoning to why you have to farm in each of these games is getting thinner and thinner by the game. Like, you are a amnesiac who's just recently been hospitalized, but fuck it. Get to work on our farm, you dickhead. Just feels a little odd here, I don't know. Anyway, this is basically all the setup you need. Again, I'm not really getting into the story here, but keep in mind this game has a pretty dense story that goes on for a long time. I'm going to be touching none of it because if you want to play this game, you should feel free to without spoilers. Like, it's not really a story game. I didn't find anything worth mentioning within it. After this kind of setup, they kind of show you how the farming system works. They kind of show you how the request system works. And then you are set to go find Hina's mom. She's a local monster girl. Her mom is just recently been lost in the forest, and your first task is to go find her. Now, although this game is set within janky 3D, playing it, you kind of immediately get this ominous feeling. I've played this before. I played it when it was called Rune Factory 4. All these systems, the flow of combat, all of it is Rune Factory 4. Specifically 4. Now, you'd think this is a setup for me to immediately start groaning and complaining and saying how bad it... No, I came into this with an open mind, and I maintained it throughout. The kind of design of the characters here is a pretty big improvement, I would say, right away. Combat kind of clicks pretty easily, you know, it feels a little bit more familiar this time around. And so with all that in mind, I kind of felt ready to properly settle into this game and give it a proper go. What remains awkward here is the fact that all the systems here are exactly the same as 4, and since they're all exactly the same, there's no real point of me covering them exact. With that in mind, it kind of caused me to look at this game with a bit more of a pedantic lens on all the kind of more minor changes on a more game feel level. First and most immediate thing is the 3D. I would believe that this is the team's first 3D game. If it wasn't, I would be really shocked because a lot of the animations here feel really janky and amateurish to me. I mean, if you look at, for example, just this typical walk cycle, like the legs kind of don't swing how you'd expect, like they kind of stop at a point that doesn't make sense. The arms are out of rhythm. There's this kind of rigid stiffness here that I feel like comes from more amateur work. This isn't a negative necessarily. I'm not saying it brings the game down. It kind of just contributes to the overall tone. In fact, I would say it kind of had its own certain charm on me. The walking animation is only one example, but I would say that that's about 80% of the animations in this game. They kind of have this janky, not quite professional levelness to them. The visuals here are also quite bright and very vivid, right? Which for me I felt like was an improvement over 4 because 4 was very dark in its palette, very dour, I would say, in its overall vibe. So to come over to this game and have this kind of bright, colorful, fun energy, I quite like that, but I would say within it, they're still struggling to kind of find this cohesive aesthetic across the whole game. When it comes to the 3D modeling and everything, there's kind of this struggle to find a cohesive vibe, right? The outfits in certain buildings feel quite modern, but other buildings feel still quite medieval or feudal Japan, so there's this kind of clash in cohesiveness across the whole art style here. It feels like within that the team was maybe kind of just still learning how to model for 3D, so within that kind of learning space, they weren't really given the tools to construct something cohesive and aesthetically stylized. It's still kind of the muddling of well, how do we get this to look vaguely how we want it to look, rather than how do we get this to be this style, if that makes any sense at all. There's this lack of kind of proper lighting and shadow work, which kind of makes it feel like an amateur Unity game you might play on a mobile device. Again, this is not necessarily a negative, it's just kind of the vibe of this game. There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. The immediate complaint though though, I would say, is that within the model work, I would say that there was a struggle for scale. The town itself feels absolutely ginormous, but not in a way that feels intentional in places. And you can kind of feel that by the fact they've put these warp points around the town. Like typically you should be able to speed through the town in kind of 2 seconds. If you look at the clips from the other games, moving around town is really fast. Here, it feels slow and tedious. Again, it's not the longest thing in the world. It's not like it takes 5 minutes to go from your house to the store, but it kind of weighs on you. You don't move very fast, and it takes an amount of time to get anywhere just within the town. The most prevalent example, I would say, is the beach. If you go down to either beach, they're fucking humongous. I mean, just look at it. It's this massive empty space. There's nothing in here to like explore or find. There's no little like fine details. It's just needlessly huge. And sure, you can come down here to fish, but if you walk up to the water, you'll notice there's no fish in it. Because it's so huge, you have to cast your lure in it for the fish to like spawn in that section. It just feels awkward to come down to the beach. It's a long walk from your house to the beach, and then when you're here, it just feels kind of empty and odd. It feels like the scale of the town, like the environment, was made separate to the models, right? So I can just imagine the guy who did the environment cringing as he sees the buildings get placed around town and seeing that his scale was like way off. You'd want it to be kind of a condensed area that's quick to whip around, but instead it's just this massive space that is awkward to move around in. And one other minor thing here that kind of contributes to the vibe is that the sound design in this game is awful, I'm sorry to say. It's really quite bad. The most immediate example is summer as an entire season. They've put this like cicada sound as the Atmos track, and it's like this piercing sound. It doesn't sound right. Like I thought something was wrong with my game. I'm trying to not be in the town because my least favorite thing about this game is that when there's a festival, they play the same music on loop forever.
Nice.
And you see the, what is that sound? Is that you?
No, it's birds.
Are you doing that?
No, it's birds. I swear to God that's in-game.
Is it in this game?
Yes. The...
Yeah, that's horrible. That's awful. I struggle to believe that's this game. Okay, alright. Oh, it is! Yeah, you're right. That's fucking sucks, man. What the... Okay, that is horrible.
Not the reason to get the fuck out of Dodge.
Yeah, that has to be a glitch.
I hope it is, and it's gonna... Oh, I was hoping it's gonna be the loading screen.
I looked it up, like, why is my game making this sound? And people on Reddit were saying, that's meant to be a cicada. We recommend turning off the atmosphere track in this game. That's not a good sign. It's not a good sign when the community recommends you mute some of the sounds in your game. That's a red flag, to be sure. Although this all kind of creates a very janky and unpolished vibe to this game, I would still say it maintains a pretty charming atmosphere. I still played it through without kind of these things crunching on my head. Like, it felt nice to play. I had a good time with it for the most part. I enjoyed the gaudy colors, and I really enjoyed a lot of the character designs. I would say a lot of the character designs here are probably some of the best designs they've come up with in the whole series. Lucy to me is a particular standout. I really love the default outfit she's in. She is just like a great design, but not all the designs are great. I would say this is probably the horniest game in the series when it comes to just how the characters dress by default. Fuck. I really don't want to get into that too much though, because the ghost of Liam will come out and start yelling at me about how this is a fuck game again, and we really don't want that. I mean it. Whoa. Whoa. What are we doing? And I guess also it's really worth mentioning, and this is probably spoiled by the clips you've seen where I'm playing as a girl, Rune Factory 5 does in fact support gay marriage. Thank you so much, Rune Factory, for finally destroying homophobia. It's good to live in a homophobia-free world now that Rune Factory 5 has been released. That's, I'm really glad for that. So which means I can play as a woman and date other women. Again, please don't read into that. That's my own personal choice. Don't read into it. My life is my life. Now, at the start of the game, there's actually about 3 to 4 of each gender you can romance right at the start. I actually didn't really notice or think about this at the time because these designs were so good and I really like the characters. I guess it just kind of passed me by that it is the same amount of romanceable options as it is in 4. Because I was going to say this is a good variety and more people, but it's the same. And the reason I guess that missed me is because these characters are so strong that it wasn't like, I didn't feel like it was slim pickings like it was in 4. But just like we've always done when I'm done whinging like a petulant child, we'll now move on to the farming. Ow, ow, oh, these fucking buffaloes are kicking my ass! Let me move! Game! Fuck me. Now the farming here is literally, and I mean literally, exactly the same as it is in 4, including the fact that the inventory stack is still 9 and the crop squares are still 2 by 2, which we all know how I feel about that. You still harvest crops at a yield of like 1 to 5 roughly, and you still have a compost bin. Pick up from the shipping bin, still 8 a.m. In terms of gameplay systems, I really can't add a lot here. Like the complaints and discussions about like the compost bin and the shipping bin, it's all the same here. Everything I said in 4, just pick it up and put it over here. It's the same thing, right? In terms of vibe though, I would say that farming feels a little bit different, and it's because of that mention of scale. You feel a lot bigger than the crops in this game, so the space itself feels quite tight, and it kind of feels awkward trying to move this little selector square around the farm. It can be hard to select the right crop at points. It feels like a bit of a struggle to select it. Something you can do here, which I actually didn't realize you could do in the other games, which is if you pick up a harvestable crop and you hold down X, like the pick up button, you'll automatically pick up the other ones around as you like select them, right? You can do this in 3 and 4. I only mention it here because I only realized you can do it when I got to Rune Factory 5. So in this game, because of the way the animations work and the kind of jankiness of it all, it sometimes feels like you'll automatically pick up the next crop way too quickly in a way that the game doesn't count it. I remember a kind of a handful of times where it felt like I picked one up and it kind of automatically whipped through a bunch, and then I checked my inventory and it felt like I was missing more crops than I should have. I can't really confirm or deny whether this is true, but it did feel like I felt like I was missing what I should have had. So it feels like within the game's coding, it struggles to count things if it all happens too quickly, which isn't really that great. There should be a fail-safe for if you pick one crop up, you can only pick up the next one 0.2 seconds to allow the game to count it. I don't know. I'm not a coder, I don't know. You can also equip weapons and tools a lot easier in this game. This is particularly useful more so in the dungeons, but on the D-pad, you essentially have the left D-pad as an option for selecting your farming and the right for selecting weapons. This is useful in dungeons because you can swap your farming to be the mallet, so then when you fight mobs, and then you can swap to your mallet to swap immediately to mining. Like, it's a pretty useful system to be able to swap between them, and if you select the same weapon again, you'll put it away. So there's no more open carrying around villages anymore. I think it's a positive change. Being able to swap between them easily is great, and having it always kind of be on hand where you can pull it out and put it away, that's great. I think it's a really good change. Otherwise, you still till the soil and water the crops the same way you did before by bouncing along. As you upgrade your tools, if you hold down the button, you'll be able to till a wider area, water a wider area. I don't really know what the over-under is on like stamina and speed versus going one at a time versus holding down the button. I remember in 4, if you held down the watering button, it often felt like it took a while then for him to actually water that area. Like, you'd hold it down and then let it go, and it felt like the animation took a bit of time. Here it feels a little bit quicker, but I still wonder what the over-under is on, like, is it faster and more stamina efficient to just go one at a time? Or is it faster and more stamina efficient to hold the button down? I actually don't know. I didn't do any research into this. It's just kind of a purveying thought in my head. Now, in Rune Factory 4, if you wanted another section of crops, you could do so at the Prince points system, right? But in this game, you actually get new section of crops from just progressing through the story. As you complete certain dungeons, you'll find what's called farm dragons, and they're essentially these warp points of these dragons that float around the sky. They have a much larger section of farm than your basic farm. You can put monster binds within them. They still have the compost system, so if you have a compost bin, I think it applies to every single crop and farm within the world. It's not just that one. But within the farm dragons as well, if you collect these kind of crystals, you can use them on the farm dragons to enact certain benefits, like making it rain for 3 days or have crops get boosted in a certain way. Finding those crystals is kind of hard if you're not going out of your way to get them, so I really didn't do that system even once, to be honest. Now, I really try to play these games without looking anything up because I really want to see how well communicated these systems are to the player just from naturally playing, right? I thought these farm dragons essentially were each like their own season, right? I thought it was like the 4 dungeons in Rune Factory 3, despite the fact that the crops in this game are still not seasonal exclusive, though they still have the same benefit and boosts if they're planted in like a certain season. Some like being planted in spring, some like being planted in autumn, you know, that kind of thing. And I thought the farm dragons were essentially an answer to this. But then after the first 4, you know, I thought it was like spring, summer, winter, and autumn. I thought, oh great, you know, these farm dragons. And then I unlocked the wind dragon, and now that theory is to the fucking wind. I don't know. I don't know whether these dragons do have different seasonal boosts or if they're all just the same. I don't know. It feels nebulous to me. I don't know why there isn't just 4 farm dragons. I don't know why there's 5. There might even be 6. I don't know. It feels like a nebulous thing to me, but again, being able to have access to more farmland is probably a good thing. In the long game, however, I would say having this easy access to farmland becomes a bit troublesome. Like, you don't have to use them if you don't want to, but you feel the world expanding and the need to use the extra farms become a bit more necessary. So as I kind of expanded out, the farming to me became much more tedious. And part of that is my own fault, because part of using the animals in this series is having them help you around the farm, being able to ask them to plant seeds for you and water the crops. I don't do this. I don't know why I choose not to engage with this system. For some reason, the animal system is just like one system too many for me to feel comfortable using. It just feels like in the bloat of everything, it's something I feel happy cutting off in my mind because I don't want to get too bogged down in all the systems in this game. So it's on me for the farming starting to feel tedious. But within that, I played this game probably a little bit longer than I did Rune Factory 3. That would be, you know, 27 hours, 28 hours roughly. It hit a point where I got really tired of doing the farming. It started to feel really tedious and it just kind of stopped feeling fun. The difference, you know, is within Rune Factory 3, the farming always felt fun to me in that game. It never really felt tedious. Sure, I'd sometimes kind of run away from it so that then I could do something that felt more important, but I still enjoyed doing the farming. Here, the farming started to feel very much like a chore that I didn't want to do anymore. And I think in a game that centers around farming, I would say that's a pretty bad sign if in the long form, the farming gets dull. Uh-oh. Oh, Jesus Christ. Fucking God. Wow. Fishing in this game is also exactly the same as in 4. But in 4, the one thing I would say here is I would say the skill system in this game is a bit more broken. For example, very early in the game, I found a pond. I found a little piece of ocean out in the overworld, and the game didn't stop me from being able to pull in essentially one of the most rare fish in the entire game. This, very early in the game, basically broke the entire economy because it sold for a ridiculous amount of money. So much so that then I went down to the magic store. I was able to afford a magic spell that basically is a spell you get at the very end of the game. I shouldn't have been able to afford this, but I could, and I bought it, and it essentially broke the game forever. I had this spell that did a massive amount of damage to every enemy, every boss. It was kind of insane. This would have been something that would have been easily fixed if they had made it so that when you fish, you can't catch a fish of a certain level if your fishing skill doesn't reach that level, right? That would make sense. It's the same way the cooking and the crafting works. I'm not really sure if it was a bug or if I just got really lucky, but I do feel it's something that shouldn't have happened, and it did make the game about 50 times easier than it should have. You can also invite someone to come fish with you in this game. This is fucked though, because you can only invite random people. If you have someone in your party you've invited along, they are exempt. They're They won't come fishing with you. When you do the fish together function, it's with a random passerby, so you don't really get to do it with the person of your choice. I don't know why they fucking did this. It doesn't make any sense. It's really stupid. I don't want to fish with a stranger. I want to fish with my fucking girlfriend, Rune Factory 5. Like, get it together, man. Pull your head in. I only did this once and I did it never again, hence why I mentioned it briefly and now I'm moving straight past it. Now at this point, I do kind of feel like I'm going through the motions a bit, describing each of these systems. They're all exactly the same as 4. The crafting benches, the forge, it's exactly the same as it is in 4. I have the same complaints there about how I don't enjoy making the same cheap hoe 500 times just so I can upgrade a skill. It's not a good system and it's really not fun to engage with by any means. As I said with 4, it still applies here. It really hinders the long form of this game because if you feel like you've fallen behind on the forging or the crafting or any of that, it sucks to feel like you have to really work and do this monotonous, repeated task over and over and over again just to kind of be at a level the game wants. It's not a fun grinding, you know, it's not like a combat type of grind, which has its own fun to it. It's just like taking a chore, like it sucks. And as this game is so much longer than 3 or even 4, I believe, it really weighs this game down. Like in the end, in the long form, I realized that I did have to do this system again, and it just feels like I can't be bothered. I don't want to. It's not something I desire, and it's not something I'm going to do. Here though, again, you still kind of set the benches down around your room as you would in 4. In 3D though, this does work a little bit better given that you can rotate the pieces and you're given a little bit more choice on where to put them. The room doesn't look quite as muddy and messy as it does in 4, but without the pieces being locked to a grid, it still doesn't really look that great. They're kind of always just slightly misaligned, and it's the kind of thing that I don't think any amount of futzing is really going to fix. It just kind of doesn't look great. It's no Animal Crossing where you can just put things around and have it look really nice. It's just kind of this awkward mess of tables and benches. Like this game still has the prince points system as 4, but given that you're not a prince in this game, I don't think it's called the prince points. I think it's still called PP actually, as I sit here thinking about it. You're not a prince though, so I guess it's just, yeah, they're PP points. You use the prince points in this game to still put in festivals, you still upgrade like your storage space and that, but the prince points aren't used at this bench for upgrading the town. Instead, you have to go to this new furniture store where, you know, that's the place where you buy the benches and miscellaneous furniture, but it's also where you go to spend your wood and your stone and your prince points to upgrade the various stores. So there is this thing of like, if you were behind with your weapons, you then work to upgrade eventually the forge or the weapon store so that then they have new weapons. It's not a fun system again because it feels like you hit a point where you're locked off, so then you have to start grinding wood and stone and prince points in order to afford an upgrade to the store. And again, it's another thing in the long form of this game, it really weighs it down. I can see this kind of system, the idea of having the prince points and the wood being used to upgrade the stores instead of it just happening automatically. I see this as a way for them to try to pad out the game a little bit more. It doesn't feel like the story itself is the pervasive momentum point. They want the gameplay itself to feel like you're pushing the game forwards, right? I would say this system, it just doesn't work in either game because it's just a thing of doing the same repeated task over and over. There's no variety, there's no real fun in it. It's just kind of a chore that you have to go do, of going and smacking these rocks and chopping the wood, putting it into a box, and then maybe going and fighting the same enemies you fought 100 times, just so that then you have enough prince points to upgrade the store. It weighs the game down heavily. We're at the long end, at the 25-hour mark. I don't really want to do that anymore. I've done it before, and now you're asking me to do it again, but tenfold? Like, no, man, I don't want to. Oh, this is so boring, please. Oh, guys, please. There still is the stamina system in this game as there is in the other games. I would say the stamina in this game feels particularly tight, even in the end game. So often I would run out of stamina and I would need to go to the fucking bathhouse. That I haven't mentioned at all. But even then, it feels like within a day, if I'm not at a level where I feel comfortable going into a dungeon, so often in this game, I would just literally run out of things to do. This was the only game in the series where at 11 a.m. I would run out of tasks and I would have to ask myself, is it appropriate to just go back to bed? It feels like a depression simulator in that way. Like, okay, I've done what I need to. Can I fuck off now? Start the day over again? It's just not a good feeling. It's really odd because like, sure, I could go fishing, but that also wastes stamina. It's also kind of boring. I've finished all the farming. I've done all that. I guess I could go into a dungeon and fight, but I've already done these dungeons. So it's like, why am I doing that, you know? And having this question of like, well, why am I doing any of this? It's not a good feeling, and it's not a point you should hit in any game where you have to ask yourself, why am I doing this? We'll get into the dungeons and the actual combat in this game. I would say the dungeon, I haven't put this in my notes, but the dungeons in this game I think are pretty well designed. There's a lot of visual variety here, probably even more so than Rune Factory 4. In the late game, they get really creative with the way the dungeons are, and it kind of has that JRPG nonsense feel of like, oh, we're just in a nebulous abstract space now. That's a lot of fun, and I like that. But this game is really long, and it has a fuck ton of dungeons, like a lot. I would say too many dungeons, but we'll get into that. For the most part, for the majority of this game, it doesn't have the issue, I would say, of enemies becoming damaged sponges, which are a pain to defeat. That was in 4. If you defeat a dungeon, you can typically move on to the next one, and it'll be somewhat harder, but it doesn't feel like this impossible roadblock like it does in 4. You can kind of progress through this game pretty easily, and I would say it's pretty fun. The combat feels nice. You still have your dodge, you still have your attacks, you know, your magic. It kind of functions the exact same as it does in 3 and 4. Here it feels a lot better, I would say, because there is the 3D aspect. It adds an extra layer of depth here that the other games didn't really get to offer. What also kind of feels nice is in this game they've made it so if you walk over an item like an enemy drop or like something that's come out of a mineable spot, if you walk over it, you kind of automatically pick it up. One major addition to the combat is this like lasso freeze thing you have. Typically it's used to stop enemies in place. You can use it to then attack the enemies, I guess, but it also lets you get like special items from the enemies. I didn't use this like a lot at all because it's mainly used for the bounty system. The idea is that your seed uses it on enemies to like capture them so they can bring them back to base or something. I tried to do this once. Trying to get it to work on this one enemy felt like impossible. Like I lassoed him 1 billion million times and it never took until like attempt 100. After that, I didn't want to do it anymore. Like, why am I doing this thing? It feels janky, it doesn't quite work, and it's not fun. So I'm not gonna do it. Whether this is like a thing people loved, I really don't know. For me, it just, I bounced right off of it. Oh, I didn't even come close. It fucking sucks, I did my best. By now it should be clear, I feel like I've hammered it in pretty hard. The big problem with this game was in the long form. 4, I obviously got tired by hour 10. In this game, it took quite a bit longer to get there, but by about hour 26, I was really ready for this game to be finished. And I thought I hit a point where the game was wrapping up and ending, only to realize that I was only 2/3 of the way through. And by that point, like, I realized I still need to do, like, I think I needed to do still like 6 dungeons at that point. And by then, it was already 10 dungeons too many. And I would say that the later dungeons, this kind of last third of the game, the dungeons do start to hit that Rune Factory 4 point where the enemies are very damage spongy and they do a lot of damage to you. So you do need to go and revert back to the systems I've complained about, where you have to try to upgrade the town or your forging, or just hope the game gives you a weapon. Neither of these options are fun, they don't feel good to engage with, and I don't like them. So it was by this point that I kind of bounced off the game. I didn't finish Rune Factory 5, I bounced off of it pretty hard. But by that point I was really bored of the game and I just kind of wanted to move on. Like, these systems are pretty fun, they're engaging enough, but even then, there's still a point where it starts to feel tedious. Kind of frightening, there's no effect for it, it's just like, bang, you're there. Oh, That's scary. I don't like that. So the bonding in Rune Factory 5 is, again, roughly the same as it is in 4, with some kind of changes. When you give someone a gift in Rune Factory 5, they don't really tell you what they prefer or what they love. Instead, they just kind of say thank you and move on, which means you don't really get that individualism like you did in 3. At this point, I kind of miss every item in the game having essentially a face that you could put to it, like Karina with the jewels, that one lady with like poison items or whatever it was. It kind of gave everything a face and a personality, and I thought that was really fun. Sophia obviously being the face of garbage. God, I miss her so much. Otherwise though, it's the same. Like, I mean, I guess you kind of pick up what people like just from talking to them, but it just kind of doesn't feel as spelled out as it once did. And I miss the kind of clear communication of 3. But again, the selection of people like bachelors and bachelorettes in this town, I think are really strong. It's a strong cast of characters, I would say. And I'll go over some of my highlights. You have Priscilla.
Good night. Good morning.
You slept for 1 hour. It was already morning when you went to bed. Oh, Jesus.
You're awake. Morning.
Creepy. A nervous girl who's best friends with Lucy. She likes writing letters and eating chocolate. You have Martin, a stoic forge apprentice who comes across cold but has a heart of gold, you know, classic trope. You have Scarlet, an absolute Girl Scout for Seed who's very competitive in her role but comes to respect you as the story plods along. Riker, a furniture apprentice who is very lazy, and everyone tells him he's a lazy shit, but what they don't understand is he is a lazy shit. We've got Fuka, a monster girl who speaks gibberish that you can somehow understand, and of course there's my absolute favorite, Lucy. She's kind of vaguely grumpy and she loves fish. She's kind of this bossy attitude and she really enjoys competition. Of course there's a few more I'm kind of missing here, but for me these were mainly the highlights. They've done a pretty good job at finding a middle ground between overly quirky and just middle of the road plain like in 4, right? Like they have some quirks, but you can kind of picture the personality of each character a bit clearer, and the fact that they kind of stick out a little bit here and there. And despite me being really quite committed to trying to romance Lucy, I still felt like the bonding here was quite lacking like it was in 4. They did try to change this a little bit more by giving like romance / bonding quest lines. Each character has like 3 or 4 kind of individual missions, but the issue here is it's not based on like how far along the bonding track you are with these characters. You can kind of just do anyone's at any point as long as you don't already have one like queued up. This kind of lacks the personability that it was in 3. It's not like I'm choosing them specifically or they're appearing from me doing anything. I can just kind of do them and it doesn't matter, which leaves the quest lines themselves feeling quite empty in a way. Like it feels like at the end of Lucy's 3 quests, it feels like it kind of hints at romance, but then when it gets back to the game, I still am only like level 3 with her, so it doesn't really make sense and it doesn't connect. It lacks the kind of immersion in the innocent romancing that was present before. I feel disconnected. And even then, I found the progression with the bonding really slow. Like again, I played close to 28, 26 or whatever it was hours of this game, and by the end I think I was only about level 8 bonding level with Lucy, and I was giving her her favorite things like every single day. It just kind of felt like it was struggling to progress in a way that felt nice and normal. I felt like I was really having to like nickel and dime the like extra percentages to upgrade our bonding. And then by the end of the game, I just kind of gave up because it was taking way too long. It feels quite indicative of how kind of slow this game feels just in general when it comes to the crafting, when it comes to the farming, when it comes to just the time itself. It all feels slow and kind of tedious, and all of it eventually becomes a bit of a chore, including this kind of bonding. Because if you give someone a fish or have them in your party, like that's really all you can do. After that, it's like, well, what now? You know, it leaves it all quite wanting in my eyes. What doesn't help either, they haven't improved the request system over 4. Sure, you have those quests I described, but the requests themselves at the bulletin boards are very boring, and there's still the same shit of like harvest 5 turnips or fight a monster or whatever. It very much lacks the personability that was present, and it's the same shitty system that was in 4. The people who give them are irrelevant. The completing the task doesn't really feel like anything. It's just kind of shit. In this case, I kind of looked past it because they did try to improve it with the kind of bonding quest lines, but it's still lacking. You can still bring people along to dungeons like you did in 3 and 4. You can have more than one person in your party. I'm not sure if I ever did. I did engage with this party system much more than I did in 3 and 4. And it's because the late game starts to feel like it really encourages you to bring people along to the dungeons. But it's the same system, verbatim, 1-to-1. I don't enjoy bringing the townspeople along because it feels like I'm asking them to come get their asses handed to them. And I don't like that. I don't like bringing somebody in and then seeing them get beaten up by monsters. It just feels odd. And I don't like, as well, on a more meta level, feeling like I have to look after these people because they're always so underleveled and you can't really manage their equipment. Like, you can give them a sword, but they might not use it, and it doesn't feel right. I don't feel like I'm equipping a party and going in ready. It feels like I've got this kind of straggler of innocent people, and maybe they'll help, but more likely they'll die. I don't like the system here. I didn't like it then. It is what it is.
Oh yeah, it's just infinite bird.
Yeah, it's really annoying.
Wow, that's really cool.
It might be because it's summer. It might just be the sound that plays in summer.
Wouldn't that be fun?
We told you to try and fucking stop playing.
If that is a thing, then I think that's grounds to
I can let this
abandon
guy out.
Alright. So at this point, I kind of have to pause and pull back the curtain a little bit. Like, I feel like I have to risk being a little too inside baseball here. I feel this vibe of the review has gotten a little strange, right? Like, I've established that this game is basically the same as 4, and I've added extra criticisms on top. Yet, I don't feel as openly hostile towards this game as I did 4 towards the end. It kind of creates a really awkward discussion point in my head because at the point of writing this script, I was about halfway through editing the Rune Factory 4 bit. I had opened up Rune Factory 4 again to collect some extra footage, and I found that I was actually having fun playing that game. I was just kind of clicking around and futzing around with it, but it felt nice to play, and it's kind of this weird thing of like, oh, is this better than I thought? And then obviously it came time to write this script for Rune Factory 5, so I opened Rune Factory 5 to try and remember it, and as soon as it was in front of me, I felt angry. I didn't want it in front of me. I was trying to kind of play it, and I just actively did not want to. I've just opened this just because I wanted to play it casually. I've walked up to the farm and immediately it's hit me that I really fucking don't want to actually play this. I wanted to just do this just to kind of, you know, reignite it so that when I write my review, I can know a bit more about what I'm talking about, but I'm here and fuck, I don't want to be playing this game. And it's just it's such an odd feeling because, like, didn't I like this more than 4? Why do I feel so upset? It might have to do with the fact that I did play more of 5 than I did 4, but I think I have to go off of my initial thoughts here on the games. I mean, obviously something in 5 was keeping me around to reach the 26-hour mark. With 4, I didn't want to play past 10 hours. That was my feelings at that time, and for the purpose of this video, that's where I have to leave it. If I were to come back to this series, if they were to release the rest of the games, I'd probably retry 4, given that my expectations around it all have changed. I'd probably give it another go and see if my feelings are any different, but for now I have to kind of stick to what I thought originally. But that leaves 5 in kind of an awkward space. I didn't hate it, but when I was done with it, I obviously didn't finish the game, but I didn't feel nearly as bad about that as I did about leaving 4 off where I did. I was done with this game. I'd done everything I wanted. I didn't really care about seeing the story finish at that point. Like, it was over in my head, well and truly. I had my fun with it, but now it's behind me. With the next game, I felt kind of excited to try it out because it is a spin-off. Guardians of Azuma is a completely different sect. And I knew that going in, but is it going to be a positive change, or is it kind of just going to be more of the same with a different coat of paint? I guess we'll have to find out. Going into Guardians of Azuma, I actually thought this game was going to be like a prequel to the whole series, but no, it is actually a direct sequel to 5. I think I thought this because a lot of the imagery and the marketing looked very feudal Japan. It was very traditional, kind of religious-y, where Rune Factory 5 feels very modern. But no, this is a sequel essentially to Rune Factory 5, present in the fact that it has a grown-up version of Hina. And this game starts off, you pick your gender and your name. I chose to play as Kaguya, but for our purposes, her name is actually Krent. It immediately starts off with this dramatic sequence where the two genders you can choose from are now fighting on top of dragons. They're yelling at each other, they're super angry and pissed off. Why are you hunting me? Why are you trying to stop me? It's very dramatic, and then you wake up, and you immediately assume that all of that must have just simply been a dream, because you don't have any memories. Oops. No memories. Well then, I'm obviously after that you're then asked to sweep up a little bit, just as any amnesiac is assumed to do. Get to sweeping, bitch. Oh, hi. Say hello. I don't think I've formally introduced Horse, but here he is. He's a gigantic, grumpy-looking cat. He's my best friend in the whole world, and I love him. No, come on, man. You eventually then learn that you are what's known as an Earth Dancer, where in the other games you're an Earth Mate. In this game you're an Earth Dancer. It has to do with the traditions of East versus West, whatever. You're an Earth Dancer, which means that it's your job to kind of restore the lands, since a few years ago there was a tragedy that has caused the Earth to literally start drifting apart. It's your job to try to kind of heal the lands and bring things back together to some degree. You do this with your best friend in the world, a floating woolly, who you aptly name Woolby. What? Now, as these games progress, you'll notice now that each game's story gets kind of heavier and more present with each entry, here being probably the heaviest and the most present. But again, I'm not going to be spoiling any story beats here at all. Admittedly, I don't really think there's much to talk about with the story that would be entertaining or funny, so I don't really want to talk about it. Plus, you get the benefit of being able to play these games spoiler-free. Hooray! Now, I was kind of skeptical going into this game because I didn't really want to play another version of Rune Factory 5, and I especially didn't want to play another version of Rune Factory 4. So I had my guard up pretty high, but really, strangely, it was kind of this moment where the game asks you to sweep, where I was kind of ready to put my guard down a little bit. The movement here is already a big improvement, both animation-wise and just kind of a game feel level. But wait, did I not have to equip the broom before using it? I just walked up to it and pressed square. That can't be right. That can't be right, but we'll move on. We'll move on. Immediately, the visual style stands out here quite a lot, where what I was saying with Rune Factory 5 to do with them kind of struggling to put together a cohesive style, that has been fully realized here. It seems like with the allowance to walk with Rune Factory 5, when it came to Guardians of Azuma, the team was allowed to completely run and even fly. It kind of has this cel-shaded anime art style that just looks really nice. It pops off the screen and it just feels so flowy and natural. It kind of is just constantly dripping in style, and it's hard not to just want to look at it all day long, if I'm being honest. I really love how pink and vibrant the immediate spring village is. I think this is a great starting place, both from an aesthetic perspective and just from kind of a learning perspective. But sure, it's a beautiful game. I mean, there's plenty of shit games that are beautiful. We all know this. What is the gameplay like? Do I have to suffer through a more beautiful version of Rune Factory 5 after all? Now, I have to pause a second. It was here where I kind of had my doubts. What if I'd committed to making a fully negative video just shitting on an entire series except for one game? That would probably look really bad. Not only do I love Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma, I think this is probably one of my favorite games ever made. It feels to me like they looked at every single system that was in both 4 and 5 and maybe even 3 and thought to themselves, how could we improve this just in every way?
What is it?
Nothing. I'm just having a delightful time. I'm enjoying this just absolutely the most. and it's pissing me off.
So going over the systems in this game, it is essentially a series of completely changed systems, both idea-wise and in presentation, right? This is going to be a pretty thorough analysis of the changes between this game and the rest of the series, and how I feel like most of them, if not all of them, are exact improvements on the series, right? We have to start at the start, and that's the farming. Now, the farming here is completely and utterly changed from the rest of the series, so I basically have to talk about it as if it's like a different game entirely. Imagine that. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is pretty much about you being able to develop these various towns you're in, of which there are 4. Spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Each of these towns are given specific spaces where you're allowed to create crops and design like buildings and paths and all that kind of stuff. In this game, you decide where the crops go and how many of them there should be. Of course, you have to have the right amount of materials to make them. Crops to me felt like the most fickle in terms of the amount of material you needed. Like I felt like I was always kind of struggling to make the exact amount of crops I wanted throughout the entire game. But here, the crops are still 2 by 2, but wait! The stack limit is 99 or so, I don't know. It's actually like a nebulous infinite amount, the stack limit. Like it goes past 9. Okay. It could be 50. I mean, I don't know. As soon as I saw that number go past 9, my eyes started to water up and I really couldn't see anything else. Now, starting off in this game, I actually didn't realize this, but I think you click one of the sticks down, it goes to this kind of bird's eye view of the development zones. This kind of takes away the need to control a character when you're trying to use these zones. And I would say it's a pretty big improvement, but it's also a pretty big change. I could see the argument that people preferred the more personalized, meticulous way of farming that was in 3, 4, and 5. Here, it's a pretty big twist, and I feel like that's why this is a spin-off title instead of just being called Rune Factory 6. It's so they can experiment with these types of ideas and get away with it if people chose to complain. So technically you still need to like equip the seeds, right? So when you go to the development zones, you press one of the triggers and you pull out your hoe, but then you're kind of just in development mode, right? Like the tools you're using are kind of irrelevant. You just kind of go to the spot and you press the button, and what needs to be done in that spot will be done, such as if a crop needs to be watered, or if something needs to be planted, or I don't even think you like till the soil in this game, to be honest. I think that's just kind of inherent. But with this bird's eye view version, essentially what you do is if you equip the seeds, you can then just kind of whip around the farm holding down, I think, either the square or the X button, and you'll just kind of automatically harvest anything that needs to be harvested, automatically water everything that needs to be watered, and automatically plant the seeds where there's seeds that need to be planted. So if you just kind of scan over it a few times, you'll do all of those things with very little input, right? Of course, if you need to change the seeds equipped, you'll go in and do that manually, but for the most part, you can kind of just do it all in one go. This makes the farming really quick and really easy, and kind of satisfying in a way, because it's just kind of this constant popping happening from you picking up everything and watering. Plus, in this game, if you harvest something like turnips, if you harvest a turnip, you automatically get a seed back for it. It's not a randomizer on whether you'll get a seed back for harvesting a turnip. You always will get a seed back. I kind of like this system because it stops you from having to go to the store every single day. That kind of thing is taken out. Essentially, if you only ever plan to keep harvesting and reharvesting turnips, if you need 50 of them, then that's it. You don't really need to keep going back and doing it again. It just kind of gives you the seeds back. And then this kind of ties into this new thing with the villagers, but I'll come back to that. Not only do you not need to equip farming tools, you also don't need to worry about that whole system of like having things in your hands, you know, from 3, 4, and 5, there's the thing I described about how you have something in your hands, you might accidentally throw it, you need to like press a button to put in your inventory. Having something equipped is different from having something in your hands. That's gone. It's completely gone. Something will never enter your hands in this game. And even then, the tools you have, that's gone as well. So there's no like equip versus holding function in this game at all. You have this kind of nebulous inventory space which everything goes to. It can fill up, which means you'll then need to go to the storage box and just start and just start shoving shit in. But for the most part, you don't really need to worry about your inventory in the same way you did in the other games. What this all kind of coalesces to is the farming flows really quickly and easily, and it's not a bother at the start, and it never feels like a bother even at the end. You get really efficient at it, and it feels really satisfying to do. With 5, the farming started to get really tiring, and I didn't really want to do it by the end game. Here, I was always happy to do it, but there's also systems in place that say if you don't want to do this right now, it's fine to leave it and come back. And I'll get back to how that works later, but the way the farming and everything is presented here really boosts the long form of this game, I would say. Flowers and veggies don't have seasonal exclusivity here still, which is odd given that you have the 4 towns, right? Like, so they could have made them exclusive to those towns, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, I would still try to put the flowers and veggies in the right towns, given that they are boosted by being in the correct season. But again, it's not really a big deal overall. So going back to how they make farming a little bit easier, Azuma also introduces this kind of town population manager. As the town grows and gets more residents, you can assign each person a job to do around town, such as farming, fishing, mining, logging, taking care of monsters, or running one of the town shops. This again, is a massively helpful feature. It essentially means if you don't really want to do the farming for a few days, you don't really have to, because the villagers will just kind of do it for you. They automatically pluck the plants out, they automatically replant the seeds, they automatically water, and they automatically put everything into the shipping bin. So you don't really need to think about the farming if you don't want to. You might be then wondering, well, why ever do the farming then? And it's balanced pretty perfectly here by 2 things they introduce. One, if you do the farming yourself, you actually get extra XP to use on your extra abilities, so there is a big boost to using farming. The other system is essentially, if you do the farming yourself, you actually receive a higher return because of the drum you have, which when you use it, within the radius, a certain radius, it'll actually grow the crops just that little bit quicker. So if something is like a day away from being harvestable, you use the drum and it'll make it harvestable. So it's actually a higher return doing the farming yourself. So it kind of means that if you want to ignore the farming, you can, but it is more helpful to do it yourself. So there's a really, really good balance here. So if you are feeling tired of the farming, it is completely within reason to just walk away from it for a little bit and then come back. Where in the other games, you kind of had to do it all the time, to the point where in 4 and 5 especially, it starts to feel like a chore. Because the villagers automatically put things in the shipping bins, it essentially means if there is like a veggie or a flower you want, you just have to kind of go in and pull it out yourself. The mining and logging here is also massively improved, because in the other games, the wood or the stone would have to enter your inventory, then you need to take it over to this box and like dump it in. Guardians of Azuma, it all just kind of automatically gets put on the ticker. Like, it's just kind of a number that goes up on the side of the screen. You don't need to worry about it, you don't really need to think about it, and it kind of makes the like logging and mining fun in this game because it's so simple. You're just kind of running around dungeons, just doing it on the go. It's, again, just a minor improvement here that just kind of makes the long form of the game feel a little bit nicer.
So overdramatic.
Usually at this point I start talking about fishing, and I'll still stick to that here, but understand that I'm kind of going a bit out of order here. You don't actually get access to the fishing until the last quarter of the game, I would say. And in full honesty, I didn't really even fish in that game this often, and for a Rune Factory game that sounds sacrilegious, but I'll kind of explain why. In Azuma, instead of fishing anywhere, you kind of have to go to these fishing spots, and automatically that sounds like a downgrade, but they are literally everywhere, like everywhere. It's not like there's like 6 of them. You still kind of get access to them anywhere you go. It's just kind of you have to go to a designated spot. I think they put this in place because it stops the kind of awkward aiming, angling you had to do in the other games. Now it's kind of, you go to the spot and there's a selection area where you kind of target where to put the fishing lure, right? It kind of simplifies it down quite a bit. And I would say I prefer this system to some degree, though. I did like the awkwardness of 3, 4, and 5. It was kind of weird and janky, but I kind of liked that about it. I don't know. But otherwise, fishing is still exactly the same. Once you cast the lure, it's the same system as before. You see the little fish silhouette, which is exactly the same design as all the other games. It bobs at the lure. When it catches, you pull it in. It's the same, right? I did fishing less in this game because fish are far less of a necessity in this game than in the other games. You can still sell the fish like usual. You can still cook the fish like usual, but the cooking here is expanded out and so much simpler than before that using fish for meals feels far less necessary, so you're not really going to catch fish for that reason too often. And bonding here is so different that you're not really going to catch the fish to use them as gifts, just from how that system works, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. I'd say the fishing is still a fun activity. I still kind of did it here and there, but I did it far, far less than I did in 3, 4, and 5. So with that in mind, they have actually completely altered how cooking and crafting work in this game, to the point where I'm going to talk about crafting in a different segment. For both though, recipes for, items or food are collected from these kind of little frog statues you find around the world. The more higher level items and food you kind of get from these shrines you find, they're more in the path, right? Like if you are hit a point where you're supposed to have some higher level items, you're not going to miss them. Like you don't need to go out of your way to find it. But the frog statues give you some extra things you can make and find if you go out of your way to get them. And they're a fun collectible, I would say. Which means that there is no more recipe bread at all, which is maybe a shock. I did like the funniness of the recipe bread, but also I'm fine without it. I think it's better to incentivize exploration than buying a recipe from a store. At this point, it should be pretty clear, I think, that the skill system from 3, 4, and 5 is completely gone. You don't need to upgrade your skills for cooking, and you don't need to upgrade your skills for crafting, though there is an XP boost for engaging with them. You're not going to be locked off because you don't have a certain level in cooking or crafting anymore. That's gone. It's just based on if you have the recipe and if you have the ingredients and the money to make the recipe, and that comes for both crafting and cooking. This makes the cooking, I would say, a lot better in general, because now you can cook at any bonfire around the world, and that usually means it's a bonfire just before bosses. The most ample time to get ingredients for cooking is when you're exploring the overworld, right? So it kind of gives an incentivized thing for fully exploring and fully fighting all the enemies before getting to a boss, because then you get the reward of reaching the boss and being able to cook some higher quality meals that'll be more beneficial in the boss fight. It feels like this kind of risk and reward system that's really quite nice. Around the towns, there's also these restaurants. There's some more character-driven restaurants, but there's also just like vague restaurants. At these restaurants, you can invite someone of your choice to come cook with you at the restaurant. You can come have a little cooking date with somebody, right? This is kind of cool because I think each of these characters have their own unique like cooking date animations, which is really cool. But also each person kind of has their own specialized meal that they can cook. Like it'll be a recipe you already have, but this character has their specific spin on it. Usually I think stats wise it's roughly the same, but it kind of gives a different little flavor to the meals, like it's this different look. It's now a cool thing you can make. They didn't have to do that, they didn't have to go out of their way to make even the cooking have this personalized effect, but they went out of their way to do it, and I just think that's really fucking cool. It adds just this extra layer of sauce to this game that didn't need to be there, and I think it's just phenomenal. Then this kind of goes into the crafting. Now you can't go on crafting dates in this game, I don't think. And again, you don't need to now go fucking craft 16 million cheap hoes in order to get to level 15 from level 12 of crafting or whatever the fuck. You just go up to either a blacksmith store in one of the towns, or you go speak to Zaza, who you unlock a little bit later. If you have the correct resources and the right amount of money, you can craft anything you want as long as you have the recipe for it. This means that acquiring higher level weapons and higher level items are a means of simply playing the fucking game. If you don't have what you need, you just kind of go back out into the overworld and fight, I guess, and collect the items you need. But usually, just from playing the fucking game, you'll have what you need to at least make something for yourself. It's such a relief having to not make 1 billion hoes anymore. Seeing that I can go to this guy and he makes what I need for me brings a tear to my fucking eye. What a relief. I love it here. I love video games.
Which one do I shoot?
At this point, I feel like I'm just kind of whipping through these systems, but they're just so intuitive that, like, all I really have to say about them is they're different, and I love them. I really loved engaging with all of these systems I've mentioned so far. But now we have to get to the combat, which I also fucking love. I mean, I just wish this game would stop being peak for 5 fucking minutes. Give me a break, man. It's going to bring me to ruin. The combat here is vaguely different, but not really. You still get to pick your weapon of choice. There's the long sword versus the short sword, the 2 daggers, all that. It's still present. Plus, there's a new kind of magic weapon, given that you don't get to equip magic the same way you did in the other games, and now it's this talisman weapon. I didn't use that even once, so I don't really have anything to say about it. Using the long sword this time around, and I think with all the other weapons as well, the charge move does so much more fucking damage than I think it ever did. Like, there's basically no reason to not use it every single time. Compared to the normal attack and even just the normal combo, it does just an ungodly amount of damage. So you're gonna see a lot of clips of me doing the charge move over and over. One of the little changes is you get this kind of secondary slot where you can put another weapon. I only really ever had the bow equipped, so I can't really speak to what it would be like to have like the daggers or the magic equipped here. I always had the bow equipped. With the bow, if you hold down one of the triggers, you automatically pull it out, and you can use it obviously from a distance. This is a good addition because it allows you to essentially take out weaker enemies before reaching them, but also a means to kind of pull back from combat if you need to. It also gives you another way to engage with the overworld, as there's these kind of targets around you can shoot. When you shoot them, it causes you to have a fucking endless conversation with this weird eggplant man that goes forever, and it's really boring. Frankly, this is the worst part of this game, is these conversations with this eggplant man specifically. They go so long. They're the only conversation I've ever skipped in this game, like genuinely.
Okay, all right, we got it. You put targets around, and it's a collectible for me to shoot. I've got it. All right, enough. Please, I got it. Let's move on from this. There's collectible. Yep. Until we meet again. That's my least favorite thing when they. It's still going. Shut up! They say one thing. Hey, I've put some targets around, and if you shoot them, I'll give you a reward eventually. That was all he had to say. Instead, it goes back and forth forever, and they come up with a bit that's not funny. And it just keeps going. It's not funny enough for you to continue, please.
As the game progresses, you're also given the god tools I kind of vaguely mentioned before. Some are used for healing, but usually they're just kind of another combo for damage. Each god tool has its own element associated, whether it's light or water or dark or, you know, whatever, which is used for some enemies are weak to those things, but also the bosses. You know, you might find a boss that's particularly weak to the longsword and fire attacks, right? So that's pretty useful. If a boss is weak to fire, then that means that using a fire move on them will build up their stagger meter that little bit quicker, as well as do some extra damage. With the god tools, not only are you given like an extra means for combat combos, but you're also given these special moves that fill up on a bar in the top left just from engaging with the combat. So if you use 2 bars, you do like big damage, but if you use 1 bar, then it's still big damage, but not quite as big damage, right? You know how it works. Well, you've played a video game before. Essentially how this is used is you'll use the weapon to like build the boss's stagger meter. The second they're staggered, you'll use your 2 bars to wipe out nearly all of their health in one fucking go, right? It's a pretty fun system to engage with, and it's fun that it encourages you to use all the different weapons. The main caveat and only caveat here is that the god tools are the only means of consuming stamina in this game. You don't consume stamina anymore from like farming or crafting or any of that. That's completely done with. In this game, the stamina is only consumed from using the god tools. And this is represented by the fact that the god tools are used while farming, right? So by like planting seeds and watering them doesn't necessarily cost stamina, but if you use the drum to boost them or the umbrella to water a wider area, that does cost stamina. Early on in the game, this causes you to weigh up what's worth using stamina and what isn't. Sure, you can use the drum to make the crops grow a little bit faster, but it's also used out in the overworld to get rid of corruption, right? So early on, it's easy to run out of stamina from engaging with this that little bit too much, but later in the game, it doesn't really become a problem at all. Essentially, it only becomes a problem in boss fights where you know that you'll need to use a specific weapon a lot. It goes back to the cooking, where now that you've engaged with the cooking enough, a lot of the meals will give you stamina back. It's just a matter of cooking meals that give you back stamina, so they're less trouble to fight. But with this in mind, running out of stamina in this game is not as big as a deal as it is in 3, 4, and 5. Like, I don't really think you can die from overexerting yourself the way you can in those games. If you use up too much of your stamina, it's not really a big deal. You can just kind of wait for it to come back incrementally or just go to sleep and wake up again. Like, it's not that big of a deal in this game as it is in those games. In Rune Factory 3, 4, and 5, there is moments where if you ran out of stamina that day, it felt like you've ruined the fucking game because now you can't do any of the things you were meant to do. Here, it doesn't play that big of a factor. Now, getting back to combat, the last massive change, I just kind of have to show you something plain. When this screen appeared, man, I felt like crying. It brought a genuine tear to my eye. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. If you can't tell just by looking at it, this game's party system is immediately so much better and so much more intuitive than any of the other games in this series. Like, I was like, oh my god, finally they figured it out. And by figuring it out, I mean they've looked at Mass Effect and said, let's do that. And it's so much better.
Oh look, you can just do it here instead of having to track them down. It's actually pissing me off how much better this game is than the others. They literally thought of every single thing that could improve the experience of playing Rune Factory 5, and they just did it. Just look at this, I can just...
At your service,
This is
Spring God.
so cool.
You no longer have to track people down and trick them into coming with you by saying, oh, let's go on a little date, and then making them fight in a dungeon with you. There's none of that. The people here, I guess, are assumed to be helping you in combat. It's part of the thematic nature of this game. It doesn't feel like I'm getting innocent people to just follow me into combat to die. That is done and gone with, thank fucking God. At the start of the game, you bring along a party of 3 people, 4 including yourself, and then you enter this screen where you can equip them yourself. You go in and you give them the weapon they're meant to use and the armor they're meant to be wearing. It's no longer giving it to them and I think that means they're going to use it. It's no, I've put it on them so they're going to use it. There's no worry that you're going to give the wrong weapon to someone because everyone only uses a specific weapon, right? So you just kind of pick the higher level weapon that somebody would have. You don't need to worry about oh, is this person good with long swords or daggers? No, you know that they're good with long swords. You just give them the best long sword they can equip. How this works in game is with these people equipped, the second you step out into the overworld or a dungeon, they are there. They don't follow you around the villages or more social areas. They only interact once you're out in the overworld. They'll just appear once they're there. This makes the party system a set and forget that I really appreciate. It's less active and it's less in your face. I feel like I should be doing this, but I don't want to. No, you will do it because there's really no way to avoid it. And it's a lot more fun to engage with here. When the people come out into the overworld with you, there's more personalized interactions. They'll talk to each other, they'll talk with you. The bonding still increases and it's more character specific, right? Matsuri, for example, likes the fights, or Hina likes it when you pick up rocks and stuff. You'll see these things as you play. Each character still has a combat level associated with them, but it's less trouble here. If you and your party are level 30, but you want to bring along someone that's level 5, it doesn't feel as damaging because when you go out to fight, you will still find fighting enemies easy, so then leveling them up just comes naturally given that the XP is kind of shared party-wide, right? So you'll kill an enemy and they'll jump up from level 5 to level 10 instantly. So it's not a big deal. You don't feel bad about it. And they'll catch up really quickly. You want to create a balanced party here because each person has a set role that they have. So there's attacker, defender, buffer, debuff, healer, that kind of thing, right? So you want to make sure that your party is somewhat balanced. Though I never really found this to matter too heavily. I feel like if you just want to bring along only the people you want to bring, I feel like that's fine. I think I played this game on normal and I never really had any trouble with it. There was no moments of being frustrated or stuck. The combat is simple and it's really fun. It's just fun to engage with. I don't really know how to put that into words. Killing enemies is satisfying. You hit them with it, there's a satisfying sound. All the sound design in this game is really clicky and punchy and nice. There's less jagged edges like they are in Rune Factory 5, and like the way the maps are laid out is really nice. There's much more kind of verticality and flow to it. It feels like a real world rather than this kind of Unity set collection. I don't know. The way it all kind of comes together, it just kind of feels like you're just hanging out with your friends. Like you're going out and you've got all your best friends there with you as you explore this world and kill monsters, and they're chatting with each other and having fun. It's like, man, I love these people so much, and I'm so glad that I get to have them around me.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello. Wait, this game does look good. It's got sexy anime ladies.
Characters here are some of the best that they've come up with since 3, and I mean that with all my heart. And I think they really kind of flexed their ability to write characters. With Rune Factory 3, I really enjoyed that the characters all had like a singular quirk, like they're all kind of boiled down to one aspect. Whether they ate garbage, whether they went to sleep, whether they screamed rainbow super loud, it was all pretty simple. Here, they got away with having a bit more depth with the characters. Sure, they're the same kind of level of quirkiness to a certain degree, but there's a little more layers to them here, and I think that's really cool. I really love Iroha, this go-lucky girl who has a special talent for making dango. What they've done with grown-up Hina is really great. In 5, she's more reserved, but here she's this outgoing, has kind of a more brazen personality. I really like her presence in this game quite a lot. Ulalaka is a fantastic addition. I love her reserved confidence, but over politeness. You have Pilika, this stoic hunter lady who's still really caring and open, despite being another more reserved character. And Matsuri, who... and Matsuri, she's like the summer god along with Ulalaka, who is the spring god. Matsuri is kind of my favorite in this game by far. I think she's a big standout. It wasn't kind of an immediate takenness like it was with Sophia, how Sophia was kind of this weird talking backwards person who I was immediately like drawn to. Here it kind of took a little bit where I realized that I was really enjoying her presence in all the scenes, and I grew this like fondness for her, which I feel like is kind of the intended effect with a lot of these characters. At first they're kind of just whatever, but then as you discover them, you grow to like them a lot more. It's more effective that way. I love how kind of loud and boisterous Matsuri is, while still having the capacity for humility and embarrassment. I really adore her design, and I love that she's convinced that she's also the god of swords along with being the god of summer. Like, it's really good character stuff. I really like her a lot. But of course, there's the men in this game, which you can also bond with too. I guess the standouts are Fubuki, the god of winter. He's got a very shy bashfulness, which I guess some people would kind of like. You have Kai, the god of hell. He's a very loud and arrogant type who loves to harass Kuruma, the god of autumn, who is more of like the kind of intellectual type. Of course, you have they say it in the game, and I could have said it fluently. Here, I've lost it. Q Lang, this robot man who loves to help, but often applies himself too much to each issue and struggles to come across emotionally. But before I get too deep into the bonding system here, I kind of have to address an elephant in the room when it comes to this. Two characters and two of the strongest characters in this game, their bonding storylines and them as a bonding option are actually locked behind a paywall. And for Australia, it's a $15 paywall. You have to buy the deluxe edition in order to get access to both Kulang and Pilika, two of the strongest members of the cast. This really sucks. Like, if it was $5, that still would be bullshit, but it's $15. It's really horrible, and I imagine this would have been a request from the publishers rather than the designers, but it just makes me really like fond for a world where this type of shit doesn't exist. I think it really hinders the game quite a bit that I have to pay more money to access what's clearly intended to be in the game. We're gonna move past it now and just keep talking about the game as it stands. When I first saw that you could no longer hold items in your hands in this game, I became a little worried that the bonding system here was maybe going to be less present or fleshed out, if existent at all. At one point I worried if it was even in the game. But no, I was wrong. Instead, it's like completely expanded. It's a completely different system through and through. When you talk to someone, you have your normal kind of dialogue dialogue options. I say that as if it's been in the other games. It hasn't. In the other games, how talking to people works is you went up, you spoke to them, they'd have their little dialogue that would be for that day, and then that was it. In this game, each kind of character has kind of a set of dialogue you can always have with them, because a lot of the time there's like requests they can give you, or maybe something related to like the main quest. There's always the option to, I think it says something like, I want to talk to you, or something like that, right? And then it engages in the bonding system. This system is apparent for every character in the game, not just the ones you can romance, but the options are slightly different for the people that you can romance, right? So now instead of being able to invite them to follow you, you now have this kind of set of 4 activities you can ask to like do with them. It ranges from like having conversations about hyperfixations, to inviting them on little dates to the forest, to like having dinner. As you level up your bonding with characters, they start to get a bit more like romancy and involved, but again, that's character dependent. Each character has like an activity that they like or even love. Some they're neutral on, and there's some that they don't like. If you're speaking to a character who's clearly a character that exists around winter and you invite them out to the beach, they're probably not really going to like that. So in some cases, that meter will even go down if you've picked the wrong option. But if you pick an option they particularly love, it'll grow like exponentially more, right? So you want to make sure you're doing the things that this character likes.
Oh. What the fuck? Fuck! I'm horrible at this! What the? Why does this game hate me? What the fuck? Why are these people so insufferable? Oh, thank God.
When you do some of these options, there'll be like a little animation that plays. So a lot of the time there's more personalized dialogue. Like if you invite someone out for dinner to eat dongo, like they'll have a specific conversation that'll only ever happen once. If you choose to do that thing again with somebody, it just kind of happens and it just kind of fades to black and comes back, right? It doesn't waste your time. On top of that, each option has like a time allocation, and depending on the level of the activity you pick, it can range from like 10 in-game minutes to like an hour. What I like about that is it kind of helps speed along the days, where in Rune Factory 5 I complained about how I would run out of things to do by 11 a.m. a lot of the time. This game has the risk of that, but with this bonding thing, it very easily moves days along very quickly, and it's very helpful for if like you wake up and then the task you want to complete you can't do until 6 p.m. Just talk to people for a while and the day will go by quicker. Like, it's really engaging like that. I really like that as an idea. But of course, you need to be at a certain bonding level to do some of these activities with people. Like, if you're only bonding level 2 with someone, they're obviously not going to want to lay in the grass with you, you fucking freak. Like, what are you thinking? These activities randomly cycle. Like, there's always an option of 4, but they kind of are always random. This can be troublesome at points where maybe you want to do a specific thing with someone, but it's just not coming up. You can click the like cycle new options button on the top right, but you can only do this like 2 or 3 times a day. So then once you're out of random cycles, like, that's it. One option that's always there, however, is the giving gifts option. In the other games, this was what you did to bond with people. You always gave them gifts, but here I found myself doing it so much less, and it's because you can only ever engage with one of these activities with somebody once per day. Like, once you choose something to do, you can't then like keep doing things. So once you give someone a gift, there's like an endless list of things they hate, dislike, like, or love, right? So it's like this list of every single thing that's in the game, everything. And there is a lot of shit in this game, as you would assume. If you choose to give someone one thing, more likely than not, they're probably not going to like it. So it just kind of feels like you're wasting your bonding option by playing the gift roulette with somebody. Did you like this fish scale I picked up? Oh, you didn't. All right, well, I guess I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Like, I would rather not do that. Like, if I can just take them down to the beach and I know that they'll like that, I'll do that every time. You can give people food, like, they tend to enjoy it if you give them food that you've made. That's kind of a given, but like, again, it just doesn't feel worth it. Overall, though, I really enjoy this new system quite a lot. It feels more conversational with the characters. I feel more involved with them. I feel more connected to them. Like, I don't feel like a child running up to my crush, giving them like a rock I found and running away anymore. Like, you feel like you're having conversations with people that are a bit more normal. And I kind of like the idea of constantly going on these little dates with like your friends and like your crushes. Like, it's fun. Once you complete a character's personal quest line, you can then ask them to be a romantic partner. And if they're at a certain bonding level with you, I think it's either 7 or 8, then they'll guaranteed to say yes. And even then, that creates its own little sequence that's really fun. Once you're romantically dating someone, it starts its own dating quest line, so it still continues henceforth. It's not just like, all right, now you're married, that's it, Gamma Ovar. No, the game like has more to offer, so you still feel like you're dating people actively. It's really fun. With that in mind, though, the request system that was present in Rune Factory 3 kind of gets split into 3 separate entities with this game. The first being what I've just described, like each character has a personal quest line that you can go on. There's a new step to each quest with each new bonding level you reach with them, and it's really only with the people you can romance, though these quest lines are not romantic by nature. A lot of them are just to do with you understanding their backstory and their personality. Like there's no kind of romance to go with the quests, it's just kind of you getting to know them. As I said, each step of the quest line has to do with what bonding level you're at, so it can be kind of awkward to reach the end of like one step of the quest and it ends at like what feels like an urgent point, but you have to keep making small talk with them for like 5 days before you can move on to the next part of the quest. It kind of feels awkward in that way, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. These personal quest lines don't really have you doing anything most of the time. Like maybe you have to go pick up an item or be somewhere at a certain time, but for the most part you're just kind of experiencing a story. Like there's not a lot of gameplay to go with them. That's not a complaint because they go by really quickly. That's just what it is. The second entity that inhibits this game, characters have personal requests they can ask of you. These typically don't have any like story or writing or character stuff to go with them. It's typically as simple as just like, I need you to kill 6 demons or find 5 turnips for me, or you know, whatever, make me an omelet. It's just usually requests like that. I didn't really like these requests because they're so simple and boring, but I would still kind of add them to the tally of tasks and then hope that it would get completed. Very little did I go out of my way to do the personal requests, though completing them does give you like material gain like wood or money, but they also increase your bonding level with people, right? So if it's for somebody you really want to increase your bonding level with, maybe you'll go out of your way to complete the personal request, though it's not a big deal. The third entity that inhibits is the like bulletin board requests. Again, there's not really any story to go along with this. It's the same as the personal requests. You know, simple stuff like go kill 3 chickens or pick up some rocks or break up with my wife for me. Just the simple things you would usually expect. The reward for this is usually material items like soil or money, but usually as well it increases the village level.
Oh. That was so much fun, nearly having sex with you. Look, I'm a damn whore, okay?
Now, I've already spoken on this a little bit at the start of this section, but I'll go into a bit more depth here, just to cap off my endless ranting about this game's various systems. Each village you interact with has these little development zones in it, where you'll set up buildings and put down crops. Like, this is kind of the main purpose of your character in this game. The main thing you're actually kind of trying to do with this system is increase the happiness level of each village. With each happiness level, you're allowed to have more villagers around the town, which is, as I described, giving them the various jobs around. The more people in the town, the more money the town will make, the more happy they get. As the village levels up, you'll get new decorations, but you'll also get new development zones. This is particularly useful for the summer village. That space felt very confined for me. Like, I really struggled to work with the summer village to get to the next level. But once I got the new development zone, I just immediately filled it up to capacity again. So like, it's whatever, I guess. The kind of buildings you put down are often like shops that'll give you certain items like salt or like miso paste or whatever that you'll go to once a day. Sometimes they're just a simple means of making more money or being able to buy more items, like you can buy certain breads or flowers from them, but also they can function as housing, right? So as your villages increase and more villagers migrate over to each village, you'll need to have houses to support them. People don't typically like being unhoused, you know, typically this decreases village happiness, as you might expect, so you need to make sure as well that the village is properly paid and properly fed, which comes naturally from the farming aspect. Decorating also plays a really big part. Now, it seems like something you'd only really do for fun, but it's actually necessary in this game. You're actively encouraged to decorate around in these development zones because they increase various kind of micro stats, whether it's like villager speed or their happiness or like money output, like that kind of stuff, like these little incremental things. Decorating the villages is the best way to increase the overall happiness because you need to make these villages look nice on top of being quite functional. The decorations tend to go from like rocks and little statues to more functional things like windmills and wells and scarecrows, stuff like that, right? I really find this whole development system to be a real delight. It's really the meat and potatoes of this game. Each village feels quite different from each other and they each feel my own. I know if anyone else plays this game, their villages will probably have their own look and maybe some will be similar to mine, but I know that each of these are mine and I set them out the way I designed, and that's really fun. The kind of high fidelity of this game makes it feel really satisfying. The fact you're on the ground level looking at it all and having the people you assigned there in the shops, it feels really nice and grounded to engage with. I really like this aspect of the game. It's clearly the bit they put the most thought in, and it's the bit that I feel like pays off the hardest because I never got bored of it, and if I didn't want to engage with it, I didn't have to, as I described earlier. You can still get monsters in this game the same way you did in the other games, though you use your kind of stick of bonding on any monster out in the overworld. You have to get their health down to 0, and then give them some kind of item that they'll like. You get a few chances to give them the right thing. Once you do, you can name them and then assign them to one of the barns that you've built. The animals that you collect, essentially with the people assigned to look after the farms, they'll collect, if it's like the buffaloes or the chickens, you'll get your eggs and your milk. But from the monsters, you do get more monster pickups like fur or claws or whatever. You can also bring these monsters along to fight out in the overworld with you like it's a normal party, but I never did this. It didn't matter. It's not like the other games where I was left behind by not bringing monsters to fight with me. It's just not something I did. That's perfect, please. As I've now talked about all the systems in this game, I feel like this kind of structure almost robs you of understanding what it feels like to play this game and experience the sum of all of these parts. Functionally, I wanted to go over the comparison between this game and all the others, so that's why I kind of sectioned it system by system. Usually I like talking about the overall feel of a game and like how its systems kind of overall come together, but with this series it felt important to understand how each system works and how each of these working systems contributes to the long form of the games. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma in its long form is still fun to engage with because they've gone out of their way to make these systems intuitive. It still has all the same systems as like 4 and 5, but the way they've put them in means that they weigh less heavy on you throughout the long form. With 3, that game was simple enough that the long form didn't really weigh that heavy because nothing in the game was heavy enough to weigh on you. Here, this has as many systems as those games, but they've really thought about each one, and each one is fun from start to finish.
It's genuinely like they looked into the future and saw how I was playing Rune Factory 5. It seems the player has no real incentive to play the fucking game the way we want them to. I have no interest in crafting, I have no interest in cooking, upgrading those skills, none of it, I don't care. And then they went, well, how do we make them do it in a way so they will care? I know. We'll make it so it's just a million times fucking easier to do.
In Rune Factory 3, when summing up the sum of that game's parts, I kind of went over what you do day to day in that game, and that loop kind of stays the same throughout the entirety of Rune Factory 3. Here, each day is completely different, whether you want to do the farming, whether you're looking to more bond with people or do specific quests, whether you're looking to focus on the main story, you can, right? So going over the day-to-day loop here is kind of useless given it's so different every day. Like, in full honesty, it's hard to sum up the loop of this game because its continuous loop escaped me, in the sense that I just kind of lost myself within it. I'd be just kind of playing this game naturally, and then suddenly I'd realize that 5 hours have passed. Like, it has that, like, I just want to keep going, just one more thing, just one more day, just one more development, I just need to get this. I finished Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma with ease. Not in the sense that it was a difficult game, because it absolutely was not a difficult game. I don't imagine anyone would find this game difficult. I'm in with ease in the fact that I played this game for about 30 hours, and I would have happily played another 30. Hell, I would have even played another 60 hours of this game. I hit a point where I just had to tell myself, like, you've done the story now, and now you need to stop, because otherwise this video would have never come out, and I mean that. I had to pry myself away from Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. You still have the character birthdays to engage with like in the other games. You still have the calendar of events, of which you can choose to add more events. I feel like this game really accurately captures the excitement I felt while playing Rune Factory 3 and kind of discovering that I really liked that game. When I started Rune Factory 3, I was just kind of playing it for a laugh, but as I delved deeper into that game, I went, oh no, I really like this. And that was what happened with this game, Guardians of Azuma. I was kind of just like plodding along, figuring it out, and then it hit me, oh no, I really like this. And it never lets that excitement fade. I always felt like really excited to play this game. And I haven't talked about it a lot, but this game's story is really good. I was a really big fan of it, and I was always pushing to kind of see what happens next. They do a good job at sectioning off characters and then having them come back and having them act differently depending on what's happening. What kind of pushes you along is that as the story goes, there's actually so many more characters to unlock from playing this game, right up to the very end. And that's kind of fun. You're always curious about who's next, who's the game going to introduce me to next. I would really heavily recommend Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. I think it's a delight, and it is definitely one of my favorite games that I've ever played. Okay, so that brings us to the emotional end of this video. Now I will unveil my ranking of each game. Again, consider this ranking kind of like a work in progress. I am very much only halfway done with this series. I'm really hoping that they do 1 and 2, and I am really hoping that they do the Wii games. Either before this video comes out or just after, that'll be the 20th anniversary of Rune Factory, and I'm hoping with that there'll come some major announcements. So we'll see what happens, but maybe don't expect the next part of this series to be anytime soon. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself here. Let's get to the ranking. I think I've made my thoughts on these 4 games pretty clear, so we'll get through this really quickly. At the bottom of the list, I have to put Rune Factory 4. Again, I didn't really hate this game by any means at all. I just kind of couldn't continue with it. It just kind of wasn't what I wanted, and that was really starting to weigh on me in this game. I could see the starts of its long form kind of starting to dwindle on me, and I didn't like that feeling at all. But when they re-released the other games, I will definitely come back to this game and give it a new set of eyes, right? Because coming from 3 to 4, I feel like is what affected my thoughts on this game so heavily. Coming back with my new set of expectations around each of these games, I feel like I could give this game another go and see how I feel about it, right? Next, I have to put Rune Factory 5, and again, for the most part, I really liked this game. It was just kind of its long form just started to really weigh on me. All of its systems just started to push me down, and I felt like I was behind on too many things to make the dungeon crawling feel worth it. I needed to do more of the forging, more of the crafting. I needed to engage with the town more. I needed to farm more, and at that point, all of those systems were systems that I was not interested in anymore. I just wanted to see the game finish, but the game told me no. I would recommend playing Rune Factory 5. I think it's really fun, but I don't think I would recommend finishing Rune Factory 5. Now, next up, in the number 2 spot, drum roll please, Rune Factory 3. Absolutely a true delight. I really heavily debated where this game would actually sit in the ranking because I felt like there was no way that anything could beat Rune Factory 3. It was so much fun, and discovering that I loved this game was an interesting discovery for me, given I was just playing it for like a light laugh. I love all the characters in it. I love Sophia. And I love the kind of combat and the fact that there's 4 dungeons and the game's like done. Like, it actively does not waste your time, and it doesn't put too much pressure on you to like do all of its things. And of course, my favorite in the series so far is Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma. And it's, I would say, really, after finishing Guardians of Azuma, it's not really close. To me, this was the perfect cap of the Rune Factory arc. It's an interesting kind of progression with this series, I feel like. They made a pretty simple farming life sim game with Rune Factory 3, then they wanted to do some new ideas with Rune Factory 4, and I feel like it just kind of didn't come together. But then the team wanted to make a 3D game. They needed to develop their skills for 3D, so they just used the systems from Rune Factory 4 to do so, right? Not really given the chance to like expand on these ideas or twist them in a way that is better. It's just kind of copy and paste it over. It's not a bad thing. They needed that kind of crisis of Rune Factory 5 in order to fully realize Guardians of Azuma. It feels like the kind of complete arc of that learning development cycle between 4 and 5. It feels like, okay, we've seen these systems, we've seen how they work and how they don't work. How can we make them work 100%? And that is what Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma is. It is a like perfect showing. It's so much fun, and you never really want to put it down. I really loved Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma with all of my heart. That's it. That's really all done. That's it. That's really all I had to say about Rune Factory in its entirety. I mean, I hope I've proven that these aren't fuck games. That was the point of making this video, obviously. That was the consistent through line, very clearly. Rune Factory is not a fuck game. I hope you'll all agree.
You good? You done?
My name is James, actually. James Bond. What's your name? My name actually is The Coming Lady.